Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. Oh, all right. How are we all?
A little hungover, actually.
Same.
Do tell.
There you go. Why are you hungover, Schmitty?
Well, it sort of ties in with also what I'm drinking today. But yes, it was Henrietta's 21st last night. And it started at 6.
Our listeners might
finished...
recall Henrietta from the Mary Joseph story.
That's right.
Like
the only sober person other than Carla on that call. So she's actually older than that now, but because of COVID, we've had to delay it quite a bit. So it was a nice Gatsby theme. I was telling boys before, the garden was like the circus had come to town, completely tarped and tented and decorated to within an inch of its life. Kate outdid herself. So it was beautiful night.
You are party people.
We are. We know how to put on a show.
That's true.
Yeah, I got to bed at about 1:30, which was actually quite decent. But that means it was a 7.5 hour party. So, and then add to that all the cooking and the work prior. So it was a long day. But yeah, it was good. I think she had a ball. Her friends seemed to enjoy themselves, and of course the family definitely did. So I think it was what one might call a great success. That's right. Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
And why are you hungover?
I'm not hugely hungover. I just went to a girlfriend's birthday lunch yesterday, and she and that group, they are notoriously competent drinkers, I shall say. If they were to listen to this, they'd know exactly who they are. And I was drinking Palomas, which seemed to work okay for me yesterday. I didn't get particularly nasally, which is a tequila-based cocktail. And I've had them before, and I do like them, but yesterday I was really enjoying them. It's a tequila with like a grapefruit soda, bit of lime. So they're actually really refreshing.
Yeah, nice.
So when I was 4 of those deep, I was like, actually, I'm doing quite well. And then I even went to the pub after lunch, and I had a couple of bottles of rosé with the girls, and
oh my God, who are you?
I know. I took the dog for a drunken walk when I got home, a bit drunk. It was like, took the dog out. I was singing as I was going around the neighbourhood. So yeah, I'm okay today. A little bit rough, but nothing major. Yeah. So nothing a Diet Coke won't solve.
Yeah.
And what about you, Clarky?
You know it's a good lunch when you're hungover the next day, I think, Carla.
Well, I did have plenty of time to sort of come home and go through all the cupboards and go through the fridge. And you know what it's like when I just eat and drink my way back through to like sobriety. But yeah. And then I have had a decent night's sleep, so I should be fine. If I was anyone else, I would be fine. But for me, it was quite a lot to drink. But I'm all good.
Yeah, nice.
And what are you drinking, Paul?
Well, I say I'm not hungover. This is the odd scenario here. I think Carla, you and I have swapped roles. We had quite a big night on Friday night, so we were a bit hungover yesterday. So today we're good. But this weekend was supposed to be my niece's 21st as well. So like Hen, Charlotte had her 21st in September, but was delayed. We've had 2 starts at the 21st party, and this weekend was cancelled because the whole family came down with COVID, so they cancelled it early last week. So yeah, that was a bit of a shame, but maybe we'll try again for a third time. But so that's meant we've had the whole weekend free, which has been, I guess, a blessing in disguise. Anyway, so what am I drinking? I'm drinking...
hope they're all better soon.
Yeah, so Charlotte's boyfriend got it first, then Charlotte got it, then my sister's got it at the moment. So it's just going through the house, which is, that's what's happening at the moment. Yeah, but they'll be fine, and they'll live to fight another day, and we'll do it again.
We had a family wedding. Oh, sorry. No, you go.
Oh no, go. Tell us about your family wedding.
We had a family wedding, which obviously I don't know that I would have been invited, but I couldn't attend anyway, over in New South Wales this weekend, and it was the 3rd time lucky, so they had to put it off twice because of COVID, and all of them were basically under lock and key throughout the last week, terrified that they were going to fail their final test, as it were, but to be allowed to go to the wedding. So when the photos of all that came up, I think it was actually on Friday, I was like, I can't imagine the sheer relief as opposed to actually being able to truly, really love something. I imagine most of it was just the sheer relief that people could attend and it was happening at last. Isn't it strange how things happen? But anyway, there you have it. What are you drinking, Paul?
Well, I'm having a homemade Tinto. So it's with the wine that we make, red wine that we make, a bit of soda and some lemon in it. It's very tasty.
Nice.
Oh.
Yes. How about you? Who'd like to go first? How about we start with you, Schmitty? What are you drinking?
Well,
Cruises.
Okay. No, I'm not on a vodka cruiser today. I am sure you're both aware that today we are recording our 21st episode. And I thought because we had a 21st last night and it's our 21st episode, that I would revert to something I drank when I was 21.
Asti
Which is
Riccadonna!
Asti Riccadonna!
I don't even know what that is.
It's a sweet It's sweet. And here we go.
Gross.
It must have been a Melbourne thing. I would have just been having beer. You're so
was a Schmitty
sophisticated
thing.
down there in Melbourne.
Not really. Okay, here we go. Ready? Oh, Jesus.
Oi!
Hey. So,
There's
Carla,
nothing
it's a
sophisticated about
spumante.
Asti
It's very
Riccadonna.
sweet. Correct, yeah.
How much is it a bottle?
Yes, in
$1.80.
how alcoholic.
No. How much
Oh,
is it?
how
I mean,
much?
I'm sure it was super cheap. Is it? I'm assuming it's still relatively affordable, given you used to drink it when you were 21.
I didn't buy it, but I think it's about $22 a bottle, something like that.
Well, that's more than I was
Is it that
expecting.
much?
That's not in it. I was
think
thinking you were
so,
going to
yeah.
say like $10.
No, it's dearer
Ripped
than
off.
that.
Cheapers.
Um,
I don't even see where the
and-
humour is in this. That's expensive.
That's
well, I didn't buy
wrong.
it, so that's good. But also,
You
this
get
is
Domain
the
Chandon for
100th
that.
100th anniversary special edition version of it too.
Oh.
So I'm sure it's just as sweet and delicious as it ever was. Let me try it. This is the hair of the dog moment. Oh,
Please don't be out.
Oh, look at
Oh.
that face. It looks
Oh.
amazing.
it's
We've just got to top you up a little bit, haven't we, anyway? One glass
Just
of this should be
remembering.
buzzing.
that's it. There
Yeah.
she is.
21.
It's very fruity. It's like grape juice. It's basically like really sweet grape juice. And it's because it's so sweet, it's low in alcohol too, but I just figure I need the sugar.
Oh, darling.
So it's
Where
okay.
would you have been
Just
drinking
don't
this
feel
at
like
the
you
age
need
of
to
21?
try it.
At home, at parties, at a club?
Yeah, we drank this. We used to drink this at home. This is before our palates matured to the drier side of wine. So yes.
You used to pre-game a little bit with it too, didn't you, Schmitty?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was a firm favourite until I realised it was probably going to give me diabetes. So anyway. Okay.
Oh, God. I need to tell you about one other drink that I'd heard of yesterday, and I wonder if you have. So a friend was talking about the fact that she'd had what was the equivalent of a Bloody Mary beer. Apparently it's a Mexican thing. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So it's a beer with the
No.
components of a Bloody Mary. So it's got the Worcestershire sauce. I've forgotten what else is in it. What else is in a Bloody Mary? What's the...
Tomato
Tomato
juice.
Tabasco.
sauce,
Tabasco,
tomato
that's
juice.
it. And tomato juice. All of those things. Without the vodka, I think. You're having
Just
it
beer
with
instead.
beer.
Yeah, right.
I'd never heard of it. Apparently they're delicious. But apparently it's a Mexican thing. And I was like, I've never ever heard of it.
Maybe
That on the
Neither
admission
have
of my
I.
Aperol Spritz, it just really showing how naive I am when it comes to it. Although I told those same friends yesterday about my Campari issue, and they were totally on board. Only one of them could drink Campari,
Yes.
and they thought there might be
Yeah.
Campari involved in a European version of an Aperol Spritz.
An Aperol Spritz, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, there is
Which
a
works
Campari
nicely for
spritz
my
you can
defence.
have. Yeah, there definitely is a Campari spritz.
Suffice to say,
Yeah.
Probably.
Suffice
get
to
'em.
say, when you only really drink 3 alcoholic drinks, i.e. champagne, vodka, tequila, I'm not really aware of what's going on. This has been a total education. What's going on with cruises, ales, red wine, Grunter's Wipeout.
Maybe you could put Campari with Asti Riccadonna just to cut
To
some
bring
of
it
the
down,
sweetness.
to
yes.
take the bitterness
Yeah.
out of it.
And
Oof.
get that balance. You
I'm
can
sure
put a
you're
bit of
gonna have a
chili
bottle of
and
Campari and try it.
garlic in it. It tastes like
Tabasco.
Thai.
Yeah, I'll get a Tabasco and some tomato juice and we'll see what it does for a Bloody Mary with Asti.
I'd like to try it though, so we'll see how we go.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, shall we remind everyone who we are?
Yes,
I'm Schmitty.
Yes.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarky. And together we are
Trial
Trial by
by
Wine.
Hi.
Excellent.
Trial by different time zones and different Wi-Fi. That's what that is, a trial by.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Oh, now before we start, I'm just waiting patiently for the decision on whether Novak Djokovic is going to play in the Australian Open. So as we progress, I might
stare at his iWatch a bit.
Interrupt as it comes through on my phone.
Start squealing.
Because I thought his visa was cancelled.
Oh, no, darling. He's
Yeah,
had
so
a special
he's-
Sunday session of court held for him.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like the normal folk.
Someone posted on Facebook that the court is sitting today for Novak Djokovic, but it takes 9 years for refugees to get through. It kind of puts it into perspective a little bit, doesn't it?
It is really, the whole thing is so distasteful from every single angle. I would hate to be close to it in any way, because I think that the whole thing is a total, excuse my French, but clusterfuck. I think everybody's done the wrong thing and everybody's embarrassed by their involvement of it. Nobody's looking good at this point, in my opinion. Everybody was in it for their own.
This should have been a fight that they
shows.
were having when he was overseas, not here.
Correct.
Just, Anyway. Good chat.
Yep.
Let us know.
Yeah.
No, it's all right. I think there's a lot of people sort of quite riled about it. So, let us know when you know.
Yep.
I
Cool.
will.
Okay.
All right. So, Carla, what have you got for us today?
Well, I've sort of decided to indulge myself. I've tried to look into...
What has that got to do with the story?
Oh,
Just a
gross.
quick grope
Shall
in
I
the
start
grotto.
again? I don't want to hear... Oh my God. I do want to start again because it just sounds horrendous.
Well, given I was going to say, and I did leave it in the edit when you accused me of pleasuring myself in the car recently.
You've got your own back, darling. There you go.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Touche.
Takes one to know
Okay.
one, so there you go. So what I meant by that, and I've possibly used the wrong terminology, is I thought I'd look into a case that I didn't really know much about, but I kind of felt that everybody else did, because it's quite it's a well-known case. But it turns out that I think a lot of people have this sort of same understanding, which is actually a really top-line headline, and I don't really understand a lot about what came before or why the person's referred to as they are. So the person that I would like to profile as such, and I don't even think I'm going to get so far into his crimes, but so I would look at his sort of background, because it's so prolific, is John Wayne Gacy, who is the clown killer, a serial killer. So everybody knows he's a clown killer. I think everybody knows he was a prolific serial killer, but I didn't really know much more than that, and I constantly hear references made to it. So I sort of started to have a look into clown crimes and to see if there really was, if that was what this was all about, or was it actually just a part of his story that became the headline. Do you know what I mean? It was, it's a nice little package. It's advertising, it's marketing. It's like, how can we, parcel this up in the media? And I do think it's a little bit of that. So what I did was I will go through who he was, and we'll get to that. But at the very outset, there was one key thing that he had said, and it's footage taken from him in jail, and he's being interviewed, and he says, clowns can get away with murder. And this is something that kept coming up time and time again. It's this idea of who you present yourself as, and a lot of the criminals that we've sort of talked about and dealt with in the last 20 odd episodes have this same thing. It's like people are not always as they seem, and I think clowns really seem to, I don't think they really polarize people, because I don't know many people who really love clowns, but I'm somebody who has never ever cared, because I've always thought they were dickheads. As a child, they didn't interest me. I didn't
You
find
thought
them
clowns were
entertaining. I didn't find them
dickheads?
scary. I do. I totally don't get it. I'm not the kind of person who finds slapstick comedy entertaining. So I don't have any issue with clowns.
I've got visions of you as a little
Carla.
girl and the clown coming up
Totally.
to give you a broom,
interested.
and you're going, fuck off, dickhead.
That is exactly right. So I'm coming from a place, I know people who are terrified of clowns and they're scared of them, they've got a phobia. Not
Yes.
me. I don't
Yeah.
care, because from my childhood, I didn't ever look at clowns and think, oh my God, hearty belly laugh, isn't that entertaining, mummy? It was like, what? Why? That's just, it doesn't sit comfortably, never has. I'm not scared by it. I just think, what?
Yeah,
Fuck
I
off.
agree. I went to the circus a couple of times when I was a kid, and there was a really, really famous Russian clown.
Quite,
Like-
yes.
I,
I know who you're talking about, I reckon. Was it like when we used to go to the Russian circus? What was
Yes,
that we used to
yes.
go to?
Sobo.
No, you used to travel, toured in Wollongong, and I remember going, I remember having
yeah,
like
it Anyway, he had a name that was like the guy from Fiddler on the Roof. Anyway, can't remember who he was, but it's same
Prince
as you.
Andrew.
Like they get out, they're rolling. Yeah, that's
big
it.
week.
They're rolling out in their their little tiny truck, and they're doing all that stuff. And I never really got it. I was like, yeah, all right, whatever. It's some kind of performance art. But the scary factor about clowns was more when Stephen King's It came out.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Of course.
and the clown is in the
sewer.
gutter or the sewer, and it takes
the
a kid.
drain.
And that image
Yes.
stuck with me. So I don't have a major phobia or fear about clowns either. I'm a bit like you. I couldn't give two shits. And I've always thought they were ugly. So, if anyone gives you like a clown
Yes.
toy, you're like, ugh, don't want that. But I certainly don't have a fear of it. But yeah, the fear side did come from Stephen King for me. Yeah.
I understand that. So I'm trying to look back. In the 80s, I think clowns were, people used to have porcelain clowns. And then with the beautiful one, the French, is it Poirot? No, not Poirot.
Yes.
And everyone had like their duvet
Pierrot.
covers and shit, and it was on pencil cases, and that was like the beautiful sort of silent clown. I'm like, oh, again, lost on me. Not
I
a
think
fan.
that one's more like the mime. Yeah,
Yeah,
But
but again,
Pierrot,
the pointy
Pierrot
little hat,
was-
and
Oh,
the
yeah.
white,
Marcel.
girls loved it. It was like, oh, get me one of those duvets for Christmas. No thanks, not into it.
Popov was the name of
Yes,
that Russian
you're right.
clown.
Was it the Great
Yeah.
Moscow Circus that travelled? I
Yes.
just had a quick look.
Yes.
Because I
Yes, it was.
absolutely remember going and seeing that in the Gong. And it was a big deal. I remember having the program, which of course I kept. I remember it being in my bedroom for my childhood. So, it wasn't that I was I'm not anti-circus. The
No.
cruelty to animal bit, totally comfortable with that. But the clowns, no, I cannot. No, and let me just frame that by saying, of course, I am joking. And when
we know.
we lived in Monaco, the circus was still a big, big thing there, and it was going through massive changes because really, clowns are about the only thing that's left in a circus when you take out performing animals. There's really not much else going
What about
on.
acrobats?
Yeah, that's it. Clowns and
I
acrobats.
always like the acrobats.
Well,
I always
They're
like that
amazing.
bit,
They're
yeah.
basically Olympic athletes.
that's
They're
amazing.
insane. They're
Yeah.
so talented. But I mean, my point is, there's not much left. So clowns seem to be safe in their job.
Yeah.
But so
Good to know. Another career prospect. I'll just note that down. Clown school.
clowns,
Right.
yeah. But I'm off to make it circus. So,
They actually do exist. Clown schools do exist,
I
by the
don't
way. But
doubt
anyway.
it. I know some people who've been
I
to
feel
them.
like I've been
Definitely
paid to be a
graduated.
clown in the past.
Yeah. I know a few people have got doctorates.
Absolutely. Could we
Fuck.
add that to like your what is it? Cert 4.
Cert
You're a
3.
fucking clown.
Yeah, that's right. Foxtel in Moonee Ponds was a bit like a clown school, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
There was a lot of crazy shit that happened there.
There was, yes.
So I
Yes.
So taking my own personal opinion on clowns, which is I don't care for them. I'm just not interested, never been my thing, because as a comedic tool, I didn't get it. And so then I started having a look, and of course, it's not really like that. They say a lot of it's sort of based on a court jester. A lot of it was about being tricky and not very nice and making fun of other
Yes,
people. It's not
yes.
about going, how do I make you feel good and laugh and, put a smile on your face. It's not really about that. It's sort of fun at somebody else's expense. Anyway, so I sort of
Belittling
understand that. And the
others.
idea that you can't see who it is, but there's a human underneath. That sort of adds another level to it. But then I started looking online. I was looking for crimes that were committed by clowns, knowing full well we've got Mr. John Wayne Gacy over here, but what else was there? And to be honest, there's not a lot going on. What it is this fear and this idea that the clown itself is so terrifying. So there's not a lot of crimes, but there have been different situations both in the US and even in Australia, like in around 2015, 2016, where it would become a sort of an online viral thing where people would say that they'd spotted clowns and they were spotted near an apartment building in the woods nearby. That started off in the US. And they were saying it's a real southern thing. Surprise, surprise. In the US where people they talk about clowns and how terrifying they are. But the clowns aren't actually committing any crimes. They're people dressed as clowns just standing there. And I could find article after article
that is creepy.
of creepiness. But creepiness isn't really a crime. So again, nothing, I'd be reading all these articles and I'd be like, oh, and then this happened. Nothing ever happened. People standing around. And then you come to the police investigation, they'd be like, we really need to be aware of this. Something could really happen.
It's
Nothing
just
would
a
happen.
fucking clown.
It becomes an
What a
online
clown.
thing. And I think...
Well, there's
Sorry, keep going.
stories of like murders happening, and there's a clown, over to the left a little bit, and no one's watching the murder. They're all just looking at the clown, and then they just go, "It must have been the clown who did it because they're freaky."
No,
Not even
quite
like
the opposite
misrepresented.
of that. It was every time I'd get to think there'll be something here, like I'm going to find another. No, it would literally be footage, and people would go, "Look out the back!" It'd be someone's parent go, "There'd be someone in someone's backyard," and then from that I found this clown, and he is in surprise, Florida, and he thought he would capitalise on this, and he reckons he's never got more work than when he would advertise himself. Oh God, I've forgotten his name. Is it like Mr. Wiggles or I will look it up quickly. And he would promote himself as the clown to come and scare your child. So people would call this guy. He'd like leave his thing at playgrounds, whatever else. Parents would call and have this terrifying looking clown. How do I show you who he is on screen, guys? Because it is just so dark. But again, he's not committing a crime. He's saying, "Come and let me scare your kids." So I don't know if you can see. And it's not a good look, is it really? Imagine having that.
And he's holding that child.
That's all staged. So what it was, they ended up doing like a docudrama on or something like that. But he's true. So he is, Wrinkles the clown. He's
looks
like
a bit
some
like
old
Jeannie
bloke.
Pratt. What? Looks a bit like Jeannie Pratt without her wig on.
Stop. It's a bit harsh.
Oh God. But it said, he looks melted and demented. And in keeping with the post report that he was played by a retired 65-year-old military vet, Nichols, so as I was saying, it was a documentary. Documentary reveals the man beneath the mask to be an older white male with a big bushy beard who lives in a cramped RV and doesn't care much for kids. Surprise, surprise. Whether cooking fish at remote lake, sitting in hotel rooms in dirty undershirts, or frequenting strip clubs when he has the funds, this dingy southern figure who demands that his face be obscured at all times, lest his identity become public, comes across as a hybrid of Michael Myers and the Devil's Rejects Captain Spaulding. Not that I know who that is. But again, he's not committing a crime. They're using him as a vehicle to scare people, and then he realises he's much better off as a scary clown. He can make more money than doing anything else. But I don't know if you
Carla,
can
when
see.
you do your school, oh no, go.
Oh my God! What is the thing with him coming out of some kid's bed?
That is the worst, isn't it? The trundle bed. We used to have a trundle bed at my grandparents. Oh my God, that is hardcore, isn't it?
That is messed up.
Oh my God, how bad is that?
Oh, you'd never sleep again.
But I've not come across a crime. It's literally someone paying him to go and do that and scare the shit out of people. And there was a mum, I think it's on the trailer or whatever else, and the mum goes, "Oh my God, kids, look out the backyard," and they scream, and out the back behind the pool, in the bushes, is that bloody creepy clown.
It's not just creepy. I feel a bit nauseous having looked at that.
I reckon he'd be great for your mummy pickups, Carla. Where you go and pick up your kids. Like if someone cut you off in trying to get a parking spot, then you could hire him to scare their children.
Oh God, yeah. The thing is, like,
you couldn't scare your own.
With my dislike, disinterest for clowns, this I find something quite separate. This is just macabre. Like, that's clearly meant to scare somebody, and the fact that all of these other things, when I kept looking at them, it becomes a sort of online thing, and teenagers start talking about it. Oh, there was a clown spotted in the woods, whatever else. So anyone, I guess, can get dressed up as a clown. They're just people stand around saying nothing and doing nothing. Just their sheer presence is enough to sort of terrify people.
Yep.
So I was off on my sort of clown, trying to find clown crimes. And to be honest, I did
clowning around.
Come up short. I came up a little bit short, but I wanted to share that because I just think it is so messed up. but perhaps it's more of a visual thing. So, having done that, and again with all the headlines about John Wayne Gacy being a serial killer that was the clown killer, when I went and sort of started to unearth his story, it's part of it, but I mean, I feel like it's a little bit, it undersells a lot of the other shit that he did. So what I thought I would do is take you back to the very beginning and get up to the point where he actually starts clowning, as it's known, because it's only part of his story, and I think it became part of, I guess,
it's just the thing
culture.
that they could sensationalise the most.
Correct. Yeah. I don't know why. Yeah. Anyway, so John Wayne Gacy. I presume you're both very familiar with him.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, perhaps
We go way back.
I know the name.
But that's sort of like me. I would, if I was in a situation, I would probably get it in a trivia competition. I would probably know enough, but I really don't know much more than that. So I thought
only if the question was, what was the real name of the serial killer known as Pogo the Clown?
He went by two names, which is interesting, but you're right there, Pogo the Clown and also Patches the Clown.
Right, the lesser known name.
Oh, I know. It's nice that he had two different looks going on.
Yeah.
Bozo the Clown, yes.
Diversified.
But I mean, it's just, I don't know, I just think it's a small part of who he is. Anyway, so John Wayne Gacy was born in Chicago, Illinois in 1942. And he is one of the most prolific serial killers that the world has ever seen, certainly the US. And to be honest, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is red flags, because there were red flags the whole way. And the fact that he got to do what he did just should never have happened. And so many things that we say, and it's always, well, where does the buck stop? Who, at what point? But there were failures the whole way through. So
red flags, red noses, red shoes.
In one. So in terms of my sources, I've watched, there's a lot of documentaries, and so I was sort of chopping and changing, and my favourite one, it was so in depth, but it is called John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise, and I think there's 10 different episodes, and each episode's like an hour. So because I've just sort of started to scratch the surface, I actually would like to spend some more time, because I haven't watched all 10 hours of it. I've sort of been chopping and changing, looking at different sources. But what was really great was there was a lot of footage of him being filmed. It was his sister. It was, people that were really around. It's not just this sort of matching of, this happened and, they're using this document from a newspaper. It's real footage and real places and real photographs, and, a lot of it's supported by him. They're asking him what happened and he's telling them. So if you were looking for a source, again, I'd suggest Devil in Disguise is really good. But to walk us through, I'm going to sort of stick mainly with Wikipedia, because it helps me from a chronological point of view to sort of spell out the story, because there's so much to it. Okay, so where was he born? He was born in Chicago, Illinois in 1942, and he was the second child of John Stanley Gacy. So he was born into a normal family. His father was an auto repair machinist and a World War I veteran, and his mum was a homemaker. They were of Polish and Danish ancestry, and they were Catholic. And his paternal grandparents, who spelled the family name as Gatzer or Gacka, had immigrated from Poland, which was then part of Prussia. He was close to his mother and his sisters, but he did have a difficult relationship with his father, who was an alcoholic. And surprise, surprise, as is often the case, physically abusive to his family. He was abusive to all of them when he was drunk, but he particularly focused his attention on John Wayne. J-Dubs, yeah. They often say that, or when he talks, he says some of his earliest memories were about his dad sort of getting to him with the leather belt. Although, to be honest, some of my earliest memories also include getting the strap at... No offence, Dad, I have no problem with it, I deserved it. But it was kind of a thing of the time. I used to... Oh my God, am I saying too much? Reveal that I used to get the strap. I used to get that. And the wooden spoon.
Same.
I've definitely got the spoon.
Yeah.
We had no handle on our hairbrush for years, because Mum used to break the hairbrushes over the back of us.
Yeah.
And not so much. The strap was more threatened. The
Yes,
strap was
we
the
had
scary
that.
thing.
It was like,
when your father gets home,
Yeah.
he's getting his belt out.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, whatever you want me
Exactly.
to do, I'm doing it.
Yeah. So there was that. We used to have a ruler. I do not know why this exists, but a very heavy wooden ruler
Yes.
that had been... My grandparents had it or something. It was old. And it had the name Mari on the back of it. There's no one in our family, extended family, called Mari. But my mum used to threaten my brother and I when we got older, like when we were teenagers, that she'd be like, and we'd be like, get Mari out. And we'd be awful running around. She'd be chasing after my brother and I with Mari. Oh, this bloody ruler. It probably still exists. It would never have busted. It was so old. We'd had it, like it was in the third drawer down in the messy drawer.
Smacker.
You know, it was in the messy drawer that you have that has all the bits and pieces. It was in that drawer. That's where it lived. And she'd go to get it and we'd be like squiggling and laughing because we'd know, oh my God, she's going to get Mari, the ruler.
Mari's been beating kids for generations.
Yeah, exactly. It was a hand-me-down. When Alex was little, she was quite naughty.
Yeah.
And didn't respond to anything much, including the wooden spoon. And for one Christmas, her grandfather, who's now passed away, gave my sister, I think, a wooden spoon for smacking Alex with.
Oh, don't worry. It was engraved. It was very beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. It was special. But yes, you're right. It was just the time. We all pretty much had a bit of smack. We had some smacks.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was going on, but I do think, when you start to introduce alcoholism, and it does go on to sort of the next level, so I'm not suggesting otherwise. His mum tried to shield him, but in doing that, it sort of exacerbated his relationship between the father and son. He'd say he's a sissy, you're probably going to grow up queer, you're a mama's boy, all of those old cliches. But despite his mistreatment, he did really love his father, but he never quite felt that he was enough in his eyes. So certainly as a young child and teenager, there was not a great relationship there. In 1949, Gacy's father was informed his son and another boy had been caught sexually fondling a young girl. His father whipped him with a razor strop. What even is that?
Sexually fondling.
Yeah.
What's sexually fondling? Is that like what you were talking about with the... Is that sexually fondling?
I don't know. It's sort of... there's a little bit left to your imagination. I don't know.
It's not as severe as groping in the grotto, but it's inappropriate touching.
Yeah, they were having a feel.
Absolutely.
It's a precursor to groping in the grotto.
Yes, that's right, yes.
It is a precursor to something, trust me. The same year, a family friend and a contractor would sometimes molest Gacy in his truck. Gacy never told his father about this, afraid that his father would blame him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're sort of setting a scene where he really does care what his father thinks, and his father doesn't really think a great deal of him at this point. It's not really going in his favour, and these little incidents are happening, and it's not making things better.
But did you say the family friended a contractor who molested him?
What? Yeah, so someone who was a family friend, who was a contractor, molested him in his truck. So yeah, but he didn't tell his family because he didn't think anyone would believe him or care. He was already copping a fair bit of heat from his dad.
Also his dad threatened him with being a sissy. Yeah.
He was overweight and an unathletic child. He had a heart condition. He was told to avoid sports at school. So he was sort of just a bit, I don't know, not particularly popular, bit overweight, copying a bit of a hard time from his dad, and very close to his mum and sisters. So I think that life was sort of okay, but, nothing particularly remarkable, to be honest, one way or the other. And one of Gacy's friends in high school recalled several instances where his father ridiculed or beat his son without provocation. So you're starting to see that the more drunk his dad is, the more aggressive he is, and it becomes that it's quite public. It's not sort of something that's just happening at home. People are sort of aware of it. Where things start to change, in 1960, now he's age 18, Gacy became involved in politics, working as assistant precinct captain for a Democratic Party candidate in his neighbourhood. And he later comes out and says that he thinks that getting involved in politics was sort of a double-edged thing. One, he really wanted somebody's approval, and he thought if he went into politics, he could impress people and get people to like him and to, look up to him and follow him. And he also thought, of course, it might help with his relationship with his father and the way his father perceived him. From the age of about 18 up until the time where he meets his wife, he sort of travels around, and there's not much to mention, although I would like to say he ends up in Springfield, Illinois at one point. I've now got this idea that at any town called Springfield in the US, at some point, anybody who's about to commit a crime has to either live there or travel through there or spend some time. So when I read that he'd been in Springfield, Illinois, where he worked as a salesman, I thought, Of course you did. And I think that might be where he actually met his wife-to-be. And her name...
Not a nuclear engineer.
No, not at all. Are you going to like where this goes?
Is her name Marge?
Not far off. Her name is Marlyn. Marlyn Myers.
Marlene.
Yes.
Marlyn
So he
Myers.
meets
Does she have two sisters?
Patty and Selma.
Yeah.
Patty and Selma.
But can you believe that Springfield
Are they
has come up
twins?
again?
Well, there are lots of
Springfields, I know.
Springfields.
That's what I
yeah,
was just saying. It was sort of like...
Wasn't the
you know,
last one
I feel
that
like
you
every...
did Springfield, Illinois?
Yeah. Oh, not
No.
Was it Illinois?
Oh, was it? I think it was.
I
Is
think
that
it
where the
was.
wingers were, Springfield,
Yeah.
Illinois? Because they
I reckon
came
it
up
was.
through Iowa. I think it's right. And because I was saying the real one is actually in Oregon or somewhere. But
That's right.
I think this is... I think
Yeah,
you're right,
yeah.
actually, yeah. All roads
Yeah.
lead to Springfield. Or certainly all criminals seem to need to travel through Springfield at some point. In 1964, he's in Springfield. He meets his lovely wife-to-be, Marlyn Myers. And she was quite a find, let me tell you. Marlyn's parents, or Marlyn's father, owned KFC. Plural. All of them. No.
Oh,
A
right.
number of restaurants.
Right.
Anyway, so when he meets
Cashed up.
Marlyn,
Nice bit of
he's
nice
kind
bit
of
dirty bird.
marrying into
Yep.
the business.
Money.
So they meet, and after a 6-month courtship, Gacy and Myers married in September of 1964. Marlyn's father subsequently purchased 3 KFC restaurants in Waterloo, Iowa. Could you imagine someone telling you as a child growing up in Australia that somebody owned 3 KFCs? That would be beyond my wildest imagination. That would just been so cool. That would have just... I would have felt awesome. Oh, totally!
3 Maccas.
Oh my god! Oh, I would have probably put them on about the same level. To own a
A
franchise,
Macca's, a Hungry Jack's, and a
Oh, a
KFC.
KFC.
Get all my bases covered.
but it would be pretty impressive, and certainly from
Yeah, it
a
would.
business
No,
point of view or
absolutely.
career prospects. You know, in the
Absolutely.
early '60s, it would have
Red
been
Rooster.
next to amazing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the couple moved from Springfield to Waterloo, Iowa, and that's where the KFC restaurants were. I use the word restaurant because they were restaurants in the day.
I think they still are.
Well,
Sort of.
well, not
If
many
you
of them.
eat
I
in
think
them.
most of them are, you know what I mean. Most of it's sort of no one's
I do.
dining.
I feel like the
in,
restaurants have
yeah.
improved in relation to that.
What was a restaurant? What was considered a restaurant?
What's
in the day?
considered a restaurant? Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
restaurants have come a long way since then.
And this is where I think, wow, mate, you really lucked out. The couple moved there so Gacy could manage the restaurants, with the understanding that they would move into Marlyn's parents' former home, which had been vacated for them. The offer was lucrative, and he would receive $15,000 per year, which is the equivalent in 2021 of $123,000,
Wow.
plus a share of the restaurant's profits. So, I mean, he was on a winning streak. That's a pretty big
really
thing,
good
yeah.
wicket.
Plus
And
a
he
share of the
certainly was
profits.
starting to find who he was. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? And this is when things really start to pick up for him, and he starts to find, who he is, and starts to want to look into how he can raise his profile in the community. So during the courtship, he'd actually joined the local JCs. Now, I didn't know what this was, but when I went and read about it, I was like, oh yeah, I think I've probably seen it referred to in different movies or whatever else. And the JCs is the United States Junior Chamber. And what it is, it's
Is
basically
it like the Masons?
kind of, and it's about
Yeah.
you go there and you become part of a club, and it's all about leadership and training and a civic organisation for 18 to 40-year-olds. And it's if you're in business, you want to be in the JCs, and the different chapters of
That's
the
a
JCs
broad
are more
age group,
successful,
isn't
less
it?
successful. It is, but I guess it's young business people, business-minded people who want to have contribute in a civic nature. And also people with political ambitions, I think, would also be drawn to something like this. And for someone who I've just sort of said, he's trying to find acceptance. He's trying to find somebody who gives him a little bit of a pat on the back and says, well done, mate. I think this, like, it sounds like an Australian there, I've been here too long. But well done, mate. Well done, chap. It sort of made sense that he would be drawn to something like this. And he starts to work for them tirelessly, and he's named as a key man by them quite early on. And this is when he sort of starts to be viewed in his father's eyes as finally becoming the man that his father sort of wanted him to be.
Oh, so he's getting acceptance.
Totally. But how is he doing this? How is he managing to do such a great job at the JCs, where he's starting to get recognition on a national level, like he's doing such a great job? And the reason is because he is an absolutely fabulous recruiter. So remember, he's got his KFC business where he recruits young staff, and then as a JC leader as such, you're trying to recruit new members all the time. It's all about, building a base and getting everybody on the sort of same leadership and training courses that you want them to do, because you're basically molding people to be like yourself, aren't you? That's what it's about.
I'll give you a free bucket of chicken if you come to my JC meeting.
It's another pyramid thing, though. It's another
little bit like
Nexium.
that.
Yeah.
But
without maybe the sex cult. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's what he's using. So I've actually seen footage of him talking about this, and he was using pornography to get young members.
There you go.
So there was sort
far
of
off.
two things that were happening in tandem. He had his KFC business, which he'd work long hours at, and was really dedicated to, but he was very dedicated to his young staff, particularly the young males, and he would allow his home they would have parties, and it was all about this idea of contra. He's all about, I'll do this for you if you can do that for me, and you can see how that's how he operates. Very happy to help people, but there was always a kickback, and I think quite often the kickback was sexual. So if you think about that in the context of his business, then what he was doing with the JCs was he was using, apparently they were called stag films in the day, but I believe that is just a porn. And then he would have people turn up to a meeting and they would show these stag films. And I think this idea of this,
at a meeting.
Yeah, or after meetings. So he's trying to get everybody kind of in with him. One is he's trying to normalise what he's doing by, watching pornography. I mean, this is in the early 60s. I think it would be quite, risque to be trying to show this kind of stuff. But also it's that idea of, well, not quite getting to blackmail people, but, well, remember we did that together, in that shared experience and the shared...
Yeah, right.
Well, again, I think it may have been a crime, I don't know, but that shared guilt and, we did this together. It's not just him. If he can get the people of influence to do the same things with him at the same time, this is what he did.
They're as bad as him.
Correct. And there was an interview that I saw with his sister, and she went to visit Marlene and Wayne Gacy, John Wayne at this point, and they went to a JC's function. And she was her and her husband and John Wayne, his wife, off they went. She said at the end of the function, he said, okay, we're not all going home together. His sister and her husband got in their car. The wife got in the car with another man, and he left with the other man's wife.
Were they swinging?
Yes.
What?
But in front of the sister, they weren't even trying to hide it. So they went home, but the wife was in it as well. So the wife's gone home with the other bloke. And the next morning, the sister comes up, upstairs, and she says that as one man leaves, her brother arrives home, and she says, how dare you put us in this, situation? We're so embarrassed. It's absolutely mortifying. We're leaving. And he was like, well, whatever kind of thing. And it was this JC chapter that they had, which was one of the biggest, most successful, and it was getting, outwardly it was seen to be, one of the benchmark chapters of the JCs was actually this hotbed again of people swinging, pornography, and couples swapping, people just sort of getting it on because they were kind of hiding behind their influence because they all had the right people involved to think that they were safe and protected, and they were upstanding members of the community to everybody else, but behind the scenes they were really starting to have quite a sordid existence.
So it was
We're
another
super
sex
close
cult.
in
There we
Waterloo.
go.
Oh, absolutely. So in 1967, he was named Outstanding Vice President of the Waterloo JCs, and the same year Gacy served on the board of directors.
Sorry, Carla,
Yeah.
can I ask a question? You may not know the answer to it. Did he introduce this pornography thing to the JCs? Like prior to his involvement, did they have none of that going on and they were just above board and straight-laced business people and he was the catalyst for bringing this in, or was it always there and he just capitalised on it?
I don't know that. He certainly
Right.
made it more prolific because he led a lot of it. So I don't know if it was there already. But,
Right.
I mean, to your point, I think you said, Clarky, before he turned up with the KFC. He did. At meetings, Gacy often provided fried chicken and insisted on being called the Colonel. He and the other Waterloo JCs were also deeply involved in wife-swapping, prostitution, pornography, and also drug use. So these upstanding citizens, and these, they weren't little country towns by any means. where were they? Waterloo. I suppose, I don't know how big it was, but I mean...
It's so odd.
Well, it's this thing of people behind... this is sort of what I want to get to. Time and time again, you might say that, people behind the mask of being a clown. You don't need a clown mask, where people are pretending all the time and, presenting one thing and...
Yeah, but that's the case now. I mean, if you look at all this, everyone's Facebook page, like how many people, right, I got up and did a really great shit today, and then I'm
going to put a filter on it so it looks sparkly.
I haven't seen
Exactly.
too many of those.
Exactly, because everyone wants to present this ideal picture of what their lives look like, regardless of the mundane and stuff that normally happens.
The bit that surprises me is how do you go to a meeting and all of a sudden start to introduce pornography to it? Like
I know, it's like it's...
And I don't know if it's all of them. I don't think it would have been all of them. I suspect what you do is... And remember, it's predominantly male, and it was heterosexual porn, because he kept coming back to that. But that's not who he was, but we'll get on to that. And you'd probably start with a select few, realise who they are, then you start to introduce people. Then they would actually get people on board purely because they heard that there was pornography being shown. So it kind of flips. It goes from some being exposed to it, then, I guess the power people are openly watching it within the meetings or whatever else. So then I guess everybody goes along with it. It's like, oh, that's what we do. This is like a party.
To what end?
I know you say that,
To
but
what
I
end?
still
Well,
don't
I know what
understand
end.
how it happens.
There is a reason they called it the swinging 60s.
Oh, God, absolutely. So, he's still married at this point. Life is actually probably about as good as it's going to get, because he was, using the JC's chapter to kind of live his sexual fantasies at that point. He had a very sexual personality. He, by his own account, he'd say that. And this was allowing him to sort of be a little bit public with it, or semi-public, because it was behind closed doors to an extent. But certainly with a lot of people, if they wanted to use it against him, they could, but he made sure they couldn't because he involved them with it. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Totally. So at this point, he actually has 2 children. So he's still married to Marlene, has 2 children, but something changes in 1967. 1967, so this is a couple of years after he's arrived.
The year changes.
Yeah. Gacy sexually assaulted a 15-year-old, a boy by the name of Don Voorhees, and he was the son of a fellow JC. He lured him to his house upon the promise of showing him heterosexual stag films that he'd regularly played at JC events. Gacy plied him with alcohol, allowed him to watch a stag movie, then persuaded him to engage in mutual oral sex, adding, "You have to have sex with a man before you can start having sex with women." Over the following months, Gacy similarly abused
true?
other...
Yes, I'm surprised to hear that.
I thought that was in the user's guidebook. No.
It's in sex education at school. I don't think that they... I think they skipped that module.
Yes.
Yeah, I missed it too, yeah.
Over the following months, he abused several other youths, including one whom he encouraged to have sex with his own wife before blackmailing him into performing oral sex on him. So basically, he tricks people. He gets people to his house. He blackmails them. He's a nasty piece of work. But, he's going on unchallenged. And in terms of JC's and his work life is as good as it's going to get. But then in March 1968, the first boy, Donald Voorhouse, reports to his father that Gacy has sexually assaulted him. Now, Voorhouse Sr. is actually a politician himself. And he immediately informs the police, who arrest Gacy and subsequently charge him with sodomy. Gacy vehemently denies it and says this is all politically motivated and that he just thinks that Voorhouse Sr. is opposed to his nomination for appointment as the president of the Iowa JCs. So the father of the boy who was assaulted, does have influence, does have power, does go to the police and says, something's happening. What can you do to help? And when they actually start looking into it, that's when they start to find the fact that he has done this to other boys as well, and that perhaps he's not the upstanding citizen that he has presented himself as. He then, during the process, he goes and intimidate, or he pays somebody to intimidate the Voorhees boy and gets caught on that as well. So when he actually does have a psychiatric evaluation, they are not complimentary. It says here, this is a section of the report detailing him, in 1968 psychiatric evaluation already. This is 1968, remember? This is a quote. The most striking aspect of the test results is the patient's total denial of responsibility for anything that has happened to him. He can produce an alibi for everything. He presents himself as a victim of circumstances and blames other people who are out to get him. The patient attempts to assure a sympathetic response by depicting himself as being at the mercy of a hostile environment. So he is caught.
He's a victim. Everyone else is the meanie.
And no sense of remorse. Like it's everybody else has done this. It's not me. People are out to get me. I've done nothing wrong. It was consensual. Yeah, sure. A 16-year-old was giving me a blowjob, but he wanted to. It's all of that kind of stuff. And again, you can see him talk about this stuff. But I've also watched some of the police officers and stuff were involved, and from the very outset, they were like, he is just a piece of work. He'll tell you what you want to hear, and he's incredibly confident. They say in everything they did in dealing with him, he didn't ever think he was going to get caught, and a lot of it is this sort of bravado that the way he presents himself. No. Not bothered. No, it's all good. I've done the right thing. Haven't done anything wrong. There's no sense of, am I going to get caught out here? How am I going to... There's no ducking and diving. It's not like that. It's just like, no. So, he gets caught and he gets convicted. And what they did was they actually... there were other things that he'd done, but they actually got him on the sodomy. So on November 7, 1968, Gacy pleaded guilty to one count of sodomy in relation to Voorhees, so the son of the politician. But he didn't plead guilty to the charges related to the other youths. That just didn't happen, didn't fly. Gacy claimed Voorhees had offered himself to him and that he had acted out of curiosity. His story was not believed, thankfully. And he was convicted... Curiosity! Do you remember that show?
Yeah.
That could have been very different. I love that show. What was the man with the curly dark hair? Phil or Ian? What was his name? Do you know who I'm thinking of?
Yeah, the Curiosity.
Yeah.
Curiosity. Wondering which way
Talk
and
about
how.
taking me back. I can't believe you remember the jingle, though.
I love that show.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, if that had been the opening scene, it would have been very different. And it could have been Curiosity. So I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was convicted of sodomy on December 3rd, 1968, and sentenced to a 10-year...
What's the going rate for
10 years? 10 years? That's a lot, isn't it, I think? To be served at the Anamosa State Penitentiary. I read somewhere else it was called a reformatory, which I thought was slightly different. And what was quite interesting about this place is it was a lot of young people, and the idea was that they were people that could be reformed. So perhaps that's why I read somewhere else it was called a reformatory.
Maybe it was called a reformatory, and then it changed its name to penitentiary after they realised they did such a bad job on John Wayne Gacy.
Quite possibly.
100% not reformed.
So yes, he's abused a child, but I'm kind of interested in the context of the time around.
That's him. What's his name?
Stuart's just showing us his name.
Rob Morrison.
No.
Rob Morrison.
Rob Morrison. Yeah.
Was it?
It was Rob Morrison and Dean
Or
Hutton.
Dean.
Dean, who I'm thinking of. I think of Dean.
Oh, Dean. It's Dean. Yeah.
Dean. I like Dean.
Yeah.
Dean was like of the time with
Oh,
that
you
mow and
fancy
that
him?
hair. Well, Mum probably did. I probably wasn't at that point. I was just there for the science. Mum was probably there for Dean.
Yeah.
Family viewing.
I was just there for the hot science teacher.
Curiosity. Oh gosh.
Everyone in that period though looks like a porn star, German porn star.
So true.
True.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask a question about the reform and the crime.
Yeah.
Yes, so the boy was underage anyway.
Yep.
But, from a contextual point of view, sodomy and I think homosexual sex was against the law though as well. So it's not just an assault on a child, it's all the additional crime is homosexuality.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think sodomy's a bullshit charge.
I'm not sure that Iowa was all that progressive at the time, or even is now necessarily.
Well, I think it should just be, rape. It's either rape or it's,
or it's homosexuality.
You know what I mean?
or-
Like, yeah. So that's. I guess that was all I was looking to explore was
How
if
many
the kid
heterosexual
if it's all consensual.
people are convicted with sodomy? Probably 0.
That's exactly the point. That's exactly my point. It's rape. It's a non-consensual.
'cause they're not doing it.
non-consenting sexual act.
No.
Correct. No, they're all bumming. It's all big. The
Bumming
bum
is
is
big.
big.
Bumming is
Bum chumming.
Bumming is big.
Bumming is
Bumming
big.
is big. I would agree with that. On every level, bumming is much bigger than it was in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, it is.
I was at
it
the
is.
pub yesterday. Girls, it's all about your bum. Bumming is big.
Yeah.
Good for the
Itty
ladies.
bitty, I like big butts and I
Big
cannot
butts and I cannot lie. What was that we did that in relation to? I forgot which story that was.
So
I can't
inappropriate.
even
Making
remember.
tea cakes.
Yeah.
Making
Making
tea
tea
cakes.
cakes.
It's
Yes,
so
I
shady,
get
that's
tea
right.
cakes, hon.
That's it.
Don't put You've got
My
to be
anaconda don't want
Don't
none
want
unless she
none.
got buns, hon.
buns, hun.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Mr. Gacy is sentenced to 10 years, and on the same day, the sentence is the same day, Gacy's wife petitions for divorce, requesting she be awarded the couple's home and property and sole custody of their 2 children, and alimony, and the court ruled in her favour, and Gacy never saw his first wife or children ever again.
Good.
Thank God for them, but I mean, that's a pretty clean cut, isn't it? It's
I
like,
don't think
no,
that's
like,
okay.
I find it a
Again,
bit
though,
odd.
why? Again, it's this anti-homosexuality thing.
That's why it would have been so easy for her
look,
to go,
so-
no.
Correct.
And her parents,
So
everyone
the
would have been
children,
involved.
The house, alimony,
Everything.
Like, just he gets nothing.
If he'd had an
Wow.
affair with a woman, it wouldn't have happened.
Isn't it crazy? You can
If
definitely
he
see the rise there,
sodomized
can't
a
you?
woman, wouldn't have happened.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
If he sodomized a woman, it wouldn't have happened either. That's
would
right.
have
He
been called a
probably
movie.
did.
That would have been called a stab.
Because they're not actually charging
that be
him with
date
rape,
4?
so it's not like God.
Okay. And
No,
so,
that's right. That's the point I'm making. Is that it's not about it. They're not calling it rape. They're focusing on it being a homosexual act.
yes.
But you get 10 years, but you also lose everything.
Everything.
But don't you
Yeah.
find the 10 years, when
That's-
we've talked about so many crimes to this point, the 10 years to me felt shocking
Yeah.
for that. Whether he serves or
I
not, we'll get to
agree.
that.
I thought
I
it
know,
might
but I
have been
just
a couple
think-
of years, but
I would have thought maybe 5, but I wouldn't have thought 10. And that's not what I think. That's just on the scale of crimes that we've looked at and the different sentences
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we've given.
of
That I was
course.
shocked by that. Yeah, it's not
Yes.
like I go, oh, I think that deserves. That's not my point. My point is on the scale
Yeah,
of things
no,
that
I
we've seen,
agree.
I was surprised at the
relative.
Yeah. Now, the next bit I found, well, rather entertaining in some respects because it just didn't feel like what I thought his prison experience was going to be like. So, again, you must have a look at this. This is featured in the Devil in Disguise documentary, and they show footage of the prison that he went to, and they speak to an inmate that he met on his first day there. He seems like a really nice man. This guy was only in there for a year and a half, and his crime was forgery. So if you look at the whole scale of different crimes and why people are in there and the different types of people you'd be exposed to, I imagine this guy's probably pretty... He spoke beautifully. I swear to God, he must have gone on to be an author or something. There were words that he was using that I thought, oh, I haven't heard that word in so long. It was beautifully spoken. And he, as I said, met John Wayne Gacy the first day that he was there. John Wayne Gacy did not tell the truth. He did not walk into the prison and say, oh, guess what? I'm here for
Shock me.
sexual assault of a sodomy of a minor. No, he... oh, God, I forgot what he said he did. Oh, God, I've gone blank. It wasn't sexually committed. He said that he had been set up and... Oh, God, I can't remember what he said he did. Oh, my God, what kind
Was
of...
it something to do with the
podcaster am
political
I?
thing?
Yes. That it would be, you know,
Yeah.
that he would been basically cast in that role and he hadn't done anything. But he didn't say it was anything that's sexual because as the chap who they were speaking to was saying, if anybody knew that you were a sexual deviant, and he used that word, in that era, you don't leave, you know, prison unless you're in a not cardboard, but a wooden box.
A box.
A box, yeah.
A
So
laundry
he said, you know, by all...
basket.
Yes, he turned up at a prison that, again, didn't even look like other prisons. This chap said it looked like the castle from Ivanhoe. It was this stone building with big turrets and whatever else. It just didn't look like what I would think a modern prison would look like. And as they were saying, younger crimes, people who generally hadn't didn't say they hadn't done anything as serious, but I think that, the idea was it was supposed to reform prisoners. So when he got there, he ended up being a model prisoner. Now remember, Mr. KFC's had some experience in the kitchen. So he ends up, within months of arrival, he had already risen to the position of head cook. And there's an interview with him by a local TV station. I mean, the amount of footage that they've got of this man is unbelievable. He's being interviewed. Sorry, darling.
Is this just because he had the 11 special herbs and spices recipe?
Doubt it.
Best southern fried chicken in Iowa.
But could you imagine having someone who'd come in, the manager of a franchise of KFC, getting food out quickly, cooking it in large batches? He would have been like king. So he goes in there, he curries favour with the guards immediately, he's giving them the best cuts of meat, so there's already this sort of backhand, I'll do this for you, you do this for me. He gets himself into this fabulous position within months. And
so he's good at head and he's a good chef, hence head chef.
And he's allowed to wear, which apparently is very important, he wears a shirt, a white shirt that no other prisoner wears. Only the guards wear white shirts. Everybody else is in denim.
Because he's a chef.
Correct. So in the whole, this sort of, the level hierarchy correct, in prisons, he is set apart from everybody else. So whilst he's got the head cook gig going on, being interviewed by the local TV station, asking what he's going to do for Christmas lunch for the prisoners, that's the footage that I'd seen, he's also running, this just blows my mind, the Anamosa Penitentiary's division of the JCs.
Of JCs.
Yes, you heard that correctly.
Yes.
I'm like, I didn't even get to the murders. There's so much stuff that I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, the other JCs that are, so you're comfortable to recognise this lot in jail? That's a thing? Yeah, that's a thing.
And what did JC stand for?
Out?
Junior...
the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce, I think. The United States Junior Chamber is what it's called. They just call it the JCs.
And so they watch porn and they run a branch from prison. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, what they couldn't do much worse in prison than what they're doing outside. So, I mean, I guess in many respects it seems to work. It says he joined the inmate JC chapter and increased its membership from 50 to 650 men in less than 18 months.
Was he running porn at the prison as well?
That's insane. He's known to have secured an increase in the inmates' daily pay in the prison mess hall and to have supervised several projects to improve conditions for inmates in the prison. This guy, by all accounts, was a doer. And every time I look at something, he was not afraid of working hard. He was not afraid of putting himself out there. It was all about networking and influence and exposure to other people. He's always trying to meet new people for a number of reasons. I guess we'll get on to that.
But it also sounds like there's a lot of lowest common denominator stuff going on too, where he's trying to drag them all down to his level as he recruits them.
Or drag them up. Again, a lot of what he does is he finds people who are disenfranchised. You've just done your first crime, you're in jail. A lot of probably really easy targets. Young, predominantly men, obviously, certainly in jail where he was, guys who are just without hope or have mucked it up or, obviously big time mucked up, but just want someone or somebody to want somebody to recognise them, to give them a sense of belonging. So, they're right for the picking, but this guy knows what he's doing. He's not anyone's fool,
he's a manipulator.
Totally
it's another
master manipulator.
Yeah.
And this I just cannot believe. So he finds out that there's a mini golf company, or I think eventually let's call it, that has gone into bankruptcy. So he's allowed to call to see if he can acquire the mini golf, like set up as such, the infrastructure.
For the prison.
For the prison. He calls, he says, he doesn't say he's calling from a prison, he says he's calling from a non-profit. So if they can take it from them, it can become a tax deduction. And he manages to pull it off. There is an aerial...
It's like Shawshank Redemption.
There is an aerial shot of...
It's a bit like Andy,
of the Anamosa State Penitentiary mini golf. So it is installed. He is a hero amongst the prisoners. Set himself up to be this, what a guy. This guy's looking after our leisure time. He's looking after our food. He's looking after our, our best interests. you'd be hard pressed to do a better job, really. And as the guy said, he said that golf course, if the course of history had been otherwise, it would be still called the John Wayne Gacy, Memorial Miniature Golf.
Oh my Lord!
Yeah, and it's still there. And isn't it amazing how?
Does it have? I was going to say, does it have alligators on it, like the Florida?
They're not in Florida, love. They're not in Florida, love. Oh God. So, first of all, so he's only been in jail for, I don't know, a year at this point. Yeah. In June of 1969, he was denied parole after being there for like less than a year. So to prepare for a second scheduled parole hearing in May 1970, he completed 16 high school courses, for which he obtained his diploma in November of 1969. He is a machine. This guy...
What?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I don't give a shit about the clown stuff. I think all this stuff is really interesting. This is like, wow, you're unstoppable. When you want to do something, you will find ways. And
I think that bears out in the rest of your story.
It does, but the clown is just—it's nearly like an aside. This is the stuff that I find interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Increasing, the membership from 50 to 650 men.
I'm going to say, as a marketer, I'm very impressed.
Hello,
by
I
that,
think that's where I start going.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a return on investment.
This guy is. We could have been doing textbooks on him for other reasons. Yeah. Other than being, a mass murderer. But, this is that thing where you go, where is genius? Where is madness? Where is all of this stuff? Where does it all come to play? And what's the tipping point? But I think his sexual nature possibly holds him up.
Well, yes and no, because many very successful CEOs are, psychologically considered to be psychopaths.
Yes.
Sorry, not psychopaths, sociopaths.
Yep.
So it could just be that similarly he had those same capabilities or tendencies, and then he goes that step further. Yeah. But all of the things that you've talked about, his ability to manipulate people, his ability to really push through, his lack of remorse on stuff.
Yeah.
Is all of those sorts of things. They make really good senior leaders. They make really good CEOs.
Because you can just, water off the next thing. It's like they're not going to be held down by a failure. Or it's like, okay, next, we've got to keep moving. How do we get our next success? And you're so right. So many of the things that he, is demonized for are things that, on another person, are things that you think, wow, that is a...
If he hadn't killed people.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or raped small children, young, children. Yeah, there's that. So, he's denied parole. He's done his 16 courses. But importantly, on Christmas Day in 1969, Gacy's father died from cirrhosis of the liver. Remember we talked about him being an alcoholic. When he's informed of his father's death in jail, he collapses to the floor sobbing, and he really is very much affected by this. And the gentleman, the inmate that was interviewed, said that he would, walk the yard with him, and he said he was heavily affected by the death of his father, and he felt partly responsible because he thought he'd brought such shame on his father and his family by serving this, by going to jail. Yeah. Not by what he did. I don't think he could make that connection. It was the fact that, he'd been sent to jail, because he didn't really believe what he'd done was wrong, because he's beyond all of that. But this really had a massive impact on him, and he did carry that. He thought that this had caused his father's death ultimately. It was just the shame of him being in prison.
Yeah.
So, that's Christmas 1969. He was granted parole with 12 months probation on June 18, 1970, having only served 18 months of the 10-year sentence.
Yeah, right.
The 18-month bit, I think, is very short, but what he achieved in 18 months in prison is
remarkable.
It's remarkable. I mean, I don't know that I could do that. Oh, no, I couldn't do it, but, most people couldn't do that at home.
Of prison.
I know. I mean, they must have had a great schedule. I'm off to study. Oh, okay, love. I'll leave you to it. I've got to do a shift in the kitchen. Oh, whilst I'm just making a call to organise to do the mini golf.
Golf course.
He must have had an office and then whilst recruiting another 600 odd people to the JCs. This guy's a machine. Anyway.
So that's 600 people in 18 months. That's like 30
it's
people
quite remarkable,
a
isn't it?
month or something, isn't it?
Maths.
I don't know. Roden and Fields
It
will want
is,
this
33.
this guy's number. He's very good. He's the ultimate pyramid guy. Just recruit. But because I think
That's
he
one
used
a
so
day.
much sex, it was easy. Yeah.
Yeah. He recruited people by sex, you reckon?
Well, he certainly did with the JCs outside, and I imagine they probably did the same in jail. I don't know. I would only assume that it'd probably be that and
Sex
more.
and
I don't know.
KFC.
Yeah.
Sex.
Just
Well, he didn't have the
like
KFC to lure them in within the prison,
No.
but I guess he had his. Or unless he was doing that in the kitchen, who knows?
I'll give you an
Using his
extra
knowledge
piece
of
of
the
meat
11
if you...
11 special herbs and spices.
Mm.
So the conditions of his probation included that Gacy relocate to Chicago to live with his mother. And I'd seen in an interview where the sister was interviewed and the mother wanted him to come home. She wanted him to come and look after her. She was a little bit incapacitated. Can you be a little bit incapacitated now that I've said that?
Yeah.
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 Somewhat.
Yeah.
Should be starting
Somewhat,
to deteriorate,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And she's lost her
If you have
husband.
6
Somewhat.
drinks,
Yeah.
you can be a little bit incapacitated. If you
Yeah, a
have
little bit incapacitated when I
12
was doing the
drinks, you
golf
can be a
last
lot
night.
incapacitated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So off he goes. He's going to live with his mother, and he must observe a curfew of 10 p.m. On his release, he told a fellow friend from the JCs who had picked him up from prison that he would never go back to prison, and that Gacy was steadfast in that he believed that he was innocent, that he'd never done anything wrong. And so off he goes to Chicago, where he gets a job as a short order cook in a restaurant. And again, by all accounts, the restaurant was a good restaurant where he kept, I don't know if mingling is quite the right word, but he was exposed to people of lots of different parts of Chicago. I wouldn't necessarily again say society, but people that were useful to him. And, he was always out finding the right
He's a
connections.
networker.
Totally. So that didn't stop it. He just had a new field, new group of people, new community to work within.
In LinkedIn terms, he would have been one of those people who's got thousands of connections. And you're like, how is that even possible?
Yeah. So he lived with his mother in a condominium, and at this time, he started, and again, I've seen, this is part of an interview that I've seen, so he's doing full hours, full-time work at, I think it was called Bruno's, which was the Italian restaurant that he worked at, but it wasn't enough for him, so he bought himself a van, and he started doing contracting work, like building work, and he'd do that predominantly over weekends. So basically, if there was an hour to be awake and of doing something, he was out there working, getting money, but I actually think it was more to do with being exposed to new people all the time. Who's new, who's fresh meat, for want of a better term, but how do I find
Goodness.
new contacts all the time? And you can't keep, using the same pot of people over and over again. So he starts up a construction company, which he calls, it's tiny, but it's called PDM Constructions. And at this point, he says to his mum, you know what, I don't think I can run this company and do my other work out of the condo. I think we need some space. I think we need to move to a house. Let's do that. I'll need the garage space. I can run the business from a house. So they buy a house in what will become known as Summerdale, and becomes very famous for a host of reasons, but this is why they end up this is why they end up in Summerdale, which is just part of a little quite a working class neighborhood in Chicago that I think it's called Norwood or Northworth. And people there have 2.5 children. They're those sort of wooden little houses. They're all sort of on top of each other. But it's their own home, and they're hardworking, blue collar people, and they become part of that environment, that part of that community. And he sets up his business, and he runs the office from their dining room table, and he uses the garage, and he's starting off again. He doesn't ever refer to what happened in Iowa. He's now in Illinois and Chicago, and he kind of starts afresh, as if none of that. No wife, no kids, no jail time. You just keep rolling with the punches, and you start again.
Yep. Oh.
Schmitty, have you stopped drinking your Asti?
Oh, look, I've given it the best I could. I mixed it with soda water and ice to make it a little less sweet, and that was okay, but the acid's killing me, so I'm just about to chow down on some quickies. And then I've got myself a cruiser.
Love your work.
And
You're a
I've got myself
trooper.
a cruiser.
It was very ambitious going with the Asti.
Well, I know. Oh well. I gave it at the old college.
Okay, so I alluded to this earlier where I just, there were so many warning signs, so many red flags along the way, and people not talking to one another, that, you know, the different, oh God, what's the word I'm after?
Authorities.
Authorities, that's the word I'm after.
Yeah.
And this is a great example of that. Listen to this. On February 12, 1971, Gacy was charged with sexually assaulting a teenage boy who claimed that he had lured him into his car at Chicago's Greyhound bus terminal and driven him to his home, where he attempted to force the boy into sex. The court dismissed this complaint when the boy failed to appear. On June 22, Gacy was arrested and charged with aggravated sexual battery and reckless conduct. The arrest was in response to a complaint filed by a youth who claimed that Gacy had flashed a sheriff's badge, lured him into his car and forced him to perform oral sex. These charges were dropped after the complainant attempted to blackmail Gacy. The Iowa Board of Parole did not learn... The Iowa Board of Parole, so that was, remember he was in prison in Iowa, did not learn of these incidents, and 8 months later, in October 71, Gacy's parole ended. The following month, records of Gacy's previous criminal convictions were sealed. So it just played perfectly. I don't know. You're just allowed to move on.
Well,
but why? I don't know that.
let's give you a clean slate, mate. You've done such a good job
you've done your
recruiting for the
time.
JCs. Well, you haven't done your time yet. You haven't even done 20% of your time.
Talk about just being able to, you know,
Yeah, but
soldier on with it.
it's pre-computers and stuff too,
Yeah.
so I can kind
Stuff
of
like this must
understand-
happen constantly,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
You just go somewhere else and you start again.
Yeah.
It's much harder
The
to do that
ceiling,
now.
maybe they became a bit sympathetic towards the charge of sodomy a couple of years later and went, you know what?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's just odd. I think that the ceiling is really weird. I don't understand why you would do that unless you felt that perhaps the charge didn't match the sentence.
No idea. Absolutely no idea. I don't know if that was a commonplace thing that you
No, I
did
don't know
after
either.
you've committed, like, so once you've done your time and you've done your parole, maybe it was a commonplace thing. I don't know.
If you've got your 600 recruits and your golf course for the jail.
Yeah.
Let's do a little round of
You're
mini
not all bad.
No. So
Maybe
he
not
and
all.
his mother have bought with her assistance. That's how they afforded it. This house in the address was 8213 West Summerdale Avenue, and
In
That's where it was-
Summerdale?
no, in the village of Norwich in Norwood Park Township. So it was just part of
Right.
well, it says it was an unincorporated area of Cook County, which is part of metropolitan Chicago. So if we just said Chicago, I'm sure that would.
Okay.
Well, that's about
yeah.
all I can understand. I don't know what unincorporated means in that context. Gacy was active in his local community. I bet he was, and so helpful towards his
Wasn't he
neighbours.
though?
He willingly loaned his construction tools, ploughed snow, and just
Ploughed some other things, probably.
absolutely.
Ploughed their sons.
That's right.
Correct. Between 1974 and 1978, he hosted annual summer parties, each devoted to a particular theme. Sounds like your place, Schmitty. Those events were attended by
Without
up
the
to,
sodomy.
Yeah.
these events were
But
attended
only
by
with
up to
wholesome fun
400
at
people.
Schmitty's
That's
house.
right. That's right. Yes.
So up to 400 people would attend these parties, including politicians. So he was a man of
400?
Influence,
That
yeah.
is an
Yeah, I
awful
loved him.
lot.
I don't know. I mean, if you saw the house, you will see the house. It's not big. I don't know where they were all. I think that could be an exaggeration, but who knows? But it says 400. In August 71, not long after they'd moved into the house, he became engaged to a lady called Carol Hoff. Carol Hoff was a childhood friend of his sisters, and apparently she had dated John Wayne Gacy during high school. They were married in July
Was
1,
she known as the
72.
Hoff?
She was known as the luckiest lady around, I would imagine. They were married on July 1, 1972. And she and her two young daughters from a previous marriage moved into Gary's home not long after they were announced the engagement. So they all lived happily there together.
Into Gary's home.
Into Gary and Gary's mother.
Gacy and his mother. Not,
did I
not
say Gary? Sorry.
Yeah, whoever Gary is.
Yeah.
Gary.
Gary.
I do this constantly.
Gary?
Gacy.
No, Gary.
know.
No.
Well, I do that. I do that constantly.
I know.
always do that.
When we did the winger story, I reckon
Oh,
you called
God.
Donna Deborah. You called her Deanne.
Donna.
You gave Donna. That was her real name, but you gave her about 4 other D names
God,
throughout
I'm
it.
dreadful with names.
Sorry, it was funny.
John Wayne Gacy.
Well played.
So,
Just
Carol
checking
Hoff,
to see that we're on our,
the Hoff,
toes.
the Hoff
The
and
Hoff.
her daughters from a previous marriage move in with John Wayne Gacy and, at that time, his mother.
His mum, yeah.
However, she did move out shortly thereafter. She goes into her own apartment.
Oh, the mother.
Yeah.
Carol and the
And
Hoffettes.
the sister who is interviewed, and the sister talks about how she was really happy that they got together, her old friend and her brother, because she said they both needed someone, they were quite lonely, and she thought they were a nice match. And, there's photographs of their wedding, which looks terribly normal, and...
But the sister would have known that he was in jail for sodomy.
Yeah, I'd imagine so, but I don't think that they really mention that. And
Right.
I have heard...
left it
No.
out of his dating profile?
I've heard the Hoff be interviewed and she
Yeah.
doesn't work. She said the Hoff said that they had sort of neglected to mention that.
I wonder. Really?
Yes.
You
I
surprised
think,
me.
but the sister might have also been on the team of he was a political victim rather than an actual sodomite.
True.
She
might
says
know.
that his parents absolutely believe that. The
Right.
parents absolutely focused
Yeah,
on
right.
that when he was in hospital. And I mean
Hospital?
their parents... Oh God!
Prison.
What?
I'm sure
I
some
thought you
people...
were the-
Oh my God! It's only going to go down here from here, isn't it? Oh my God.
You're going to get cut off the Diet Cokes. I thought there was a whole nother
so
part of the story
sorry.
you weren't telling us.
Oh God, I'm trying to be so earnest. Oh no, in prison, hospital, whatever, Carla. Oh dear
Gary's in
God.
hospital. Gacy's in prison.
Gary's in hospital. Okay, so I don't believe the Hoff was aware of
any of that. Right.
No.
Of
And
the
she
sodomy.
says that her daughters still referred to him as dad. They had a great relationship with him, and by all accounts, he was a nice stepfather. So there you go. I don't think he was interested in them.
Still as in, after all of the story plays out, they still call him dad.
I don't know if I could go that far, but certainly...
But at this point, still.
They're together. Yeah. And shortly
right.
after, when
Okay,
they're not
gotcha.
together. Yeah. Sorry, I've kind of got ahead of myself a little bit there.
No, I think I got
So-
ahead of yourself.
When the sister talks about this period, she says she's happy for them to get together, but when mum, their mother moved out, the mum could sense that perhaps, I think the mum kind of knew all along, is what the sister is alluding to, and says, maybe she just doesn't want to be part and party too, seeing what's, going on at 8213 West Somerdale Avenue. So by 1975, Gacy tells his wife that he is bisexual. So he's now starting to own it a little bit, I think. And when he's interviewed later on, he always says, I'm not a homosexual, I am absolutely bisexual, and I prefer women to men. But I guess, that's something. I think that he at least is heading towards dealing with, part of his persona at least. And then after the couple have sex on, just happens to be a Mother's Day, in 75, because I've again heard her interviewed, and she says this, he informs her that is the last time that they would ever be having sex. He starts spending most of his nights away from the home, and he returns early hours of the morning with excuses constantly that he's working late. The Hoff, Carol, observes that he's starting to bring home teenage boys into the garage in the early hours.
Oh my Lord.
And she finds gay pornography.
Come
And then,
on.
rather alarmingly, she starts to find, and it does say plural, men's wallets and identification inside the house.
All right.
When
Call
she
the police.
confronted... When she confronted Gacy about who these items belong to, he informs her angrily that it's none of her business. So, again, here's one of those other key
incorrect.
moments. Yeah.
At least he didn't say, I don't know nothing about birthing babies.
So, not because there are teenage boys coming into the garage or because she's finding people's identification.
Coming in the garage.
But because they have
Stop.
an argument over a failed balance of a checkbook, Carol asks, Gacy for a divorce. Enough,
Are you
right?
kidding?
That I will not stand for.
I'll draw the
Teenagers in
line at
garage.
that.
Correct.
Fuck me. That's just...
So typical, really.
No.
Of a lot of the stuff that we read, I'm not even surprised by that. It's like, oh, I won't deal with any of the stuff that I just don't know how to deal with, but I can kind of own an anchor on something. Yeah, you know.
I have morals, John Wayne. You know, I can handle you taking teenage boys into the garage, but...
All out. Oh, God.
But if I can't buy myself whatever I want, we're out. I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're going to have
Yeah.
monetary problems whilst you're doing all of these crimes, I'm not okay
Enough.
with that.
I'm out.
Yeah.
God.
He agreed to his wife's request, although by mutual consent, she continued to live
He got the
at the
house?
West Summerdale house. No, until February 76.
No.
So she's still there tonight. It's important to remember this. She's still there till 1976, when she and her daughters moved into their own apartment. So it's not like they're out immediately. Like,
That's just
they
messed
continue
up.
and that's important for what happens after. That's important. A month later, on March 2, the Gacy's divorce decree upon the false grounds of Gacy's infidelity with, it's important to note, women.
Yeah.
Correct. Again.
The
It's like,
false
you learned
grounds,
that
though,
lesson.
did you say?
Correct, because it wasn't infidelity with women, it's infidelity with men.
Hmm.
But of course, that I don't even know if they would have accepted that as a reason. Possibly in Illinois, I don't know. But again, they shy away from that. You know, that's the worst thing you can do. That's the worst crime. Is anything to be
the
doing
thing
with
is-
under the homosexuality. Heaven forbid.
It's not even men, it's teenage boys. Like, fuck. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he's bad, but fuck, lady. You know, there's some shit going on there, and
Yeah,
don't turn a blind eye.
I'm telling you, red flags, like red.
Yeah.
Flags.
Red clown
Every-
noses, like, God.
So at the same time that this is sort of all happening, his PDM, which stood for painting, decorating and maintenance, his business is growing. So remember he'd started it back in, I don't know, I think 71, when he'd moved back to Chicago, moved into the house with Mummy.
Yes.
They set it up from Summerdale Ave. Yep. And it starts to become so successful that he's able to get rid of the day job, which is important. So he was doing the painting and decorating of a night, which, you know, you'd expect it to be the opposite. He was actually the cook in the day.
What?
Doing his night. Correct.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
This
Gacy
is
worked
messed up.
evenings on his construction, company, but he did the day work as the cook. So you can see that it's just a cover, really, to be going out and decorating.
So
Initially,
how did it become successful then?
Initially he undertook minor repair work, because I don't think he was particularly trained in any of this, such as sign writing, pouring concrete and redecorating. But I love this. Later expanded to include projects such as interior design, remodeling, installation, assembly and landscaping. Is there nothing this man cannot do?
He was
He's
very
very
good
handy
at
to have around the
interior
house.
designing rape dungeons. Alf Stewart would have got him involved.
Oh, God.
So he's able to quit his job as a cook, so he could commit fully to his construction business, which should be alarming for all of
Yeah,
us.
fully.
Yep.
By 75, he was, PDM expanded rapidly, and he was working up to 16 hours a day. He ended up with some
Was
big
he, though?
contracts.
Yeah, when you say working, is that in inverted commas?
Yeah, it is.
It's
But
sweated a lot.
There you
but-
go.
and it's not that they didn't
Didn't
have
get much
legitimate
done.
projects, but he must have needed quite a cast of, young
Nubile men.
men to help him with this work. And by
Teenagers.
in 1978, the annual revenue was over $200,000, and that's a lot. Like, I mean, it was a success.
It's
by
a
all
lot,
accounts.
isn't it, for back
Pretty
then?
much everything
Yeah,
this man
wow.
puts his hand to, he succeeds in.
Yeah.
He succeeds at, yeah.
And now
Except marriage
we have,
and living legally.
Well, I'm just going to add to that because I had a little look-see while you were chatting before.
yeah.
Apparently, Illinois repealed its sodomy laws in the 60s, actually.
Oh.
So, I'm not
See,
sure.
I wondered
that
if that's why he moved there.
Maybe, because it
No,
doesn't...
he had to, because that was where he was from. He had to go to his mother. Maybe. Oh, I see what
Yes,
you're
but
saying.
he would have agreed with that because
Yeah.
I won't get into
Yeah, I see
jail
what you're
again for what I
Maybe,
like
and
to do.
So I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting because he didn't say he was being unfaithful in the divorce with men. And I wondered if that was because it was illegal. And it doesn't look like it was by 1976. So that's interesting. Anyway.
Doesn't mean it's socially acceptable.
Oh, no, totally. Yeah.
So you can say that again. He's built a new life for himself. He's a new cover as such. You know, I mean, he's running a construction company now.
Yeah.
Where he was Mr. KFC, where he was the Colonel before. You know, he's a successful businessman. If you're a successful businessman, people allow that. Look, there's an opportunity for him to meet other people. It's this fabulous cover, and you know, again, he's making a success of it. In terms
He's
of
like
what
Kylie
he needs out of
Minogue.
it.
He just keeps reinventing himself.
Or Madonna, yeah.
He just pivots. I love
Or
that. word.
Madge.
Pivots.
Yeah.
Madge.
Pivots.
And speaking of rebranding, inventing himself, let's talk about him and his clowning.
Oh.
So he was a member of a local club called the Moose Club, and Gacy became aware of the Jolly Joker Clown Club, whose members regularly performed at fundraising events and parades, in addition to voluntarily
It just
entertaining
sounds so
hospitalised
wrong.
children.
Oh.
I know. In 75, he
Jolly
joined the Clown
Joker
Club.
Clown Club. Like, I know it was a different time back then.
Pick any man in your life. I'm thinking of my own, in the context of the 1970s, my own childhood, whatever. And even today, pick any man, friend, or in your family who went to join a clown club and was able to create their own clown character. Could you imagine doing that? What shall I be? Imagine your dad going, oh, do you know what? I wouldn't mind being Pogo the Clown or Patches the Clown. It must have been of a different time, because I cannot imagine rocking up with other men going, what are you going to do? What's your face paint going to look like? What's your makeup going to do? What's your outfit going to
Well,
be?
you say that, but then you've got all these people who love LARPing, right? So there are a lot of people who do this live
Oh,
action
you have to
role
remind
play.
me what that's called. Live
Action role play.
role play.
Yeah.
But was that a thing then, or is that the modern day version
I
of
think
that?
that might be the
God.
modern day version.
know
So you
what that
got
was.
people. You don't know what
think that's
LARPing is.
TikTok.
I wonder who we've offended then by basically saying you're the clowns.
No. I'm just it's a.
Oh, I agree.
LARPers
I
don't
agree.
go around and entertain sick kids in hospital. But
They entertain each other.
they do, yeah. So they'll
Yeah.
dress up in like medieval thing and they'll mock fight each
Oh,
other
yeah,
and
I've
have
seen that.
battles.
There's an
yeah.
ad for one of the health funds. I don't know if it's over here
Yes,
or if it's
yes,
nationwide.
yes,
There's an
yes,
ad,
yes,
and
I've
I'm
seen
always
it.
like, oh dear God, please, no.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. She's living her
What's
best
the,
life being a LARPer.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. And she says the word LARP
was
because
the-
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Who was the clown in Melbourne that would have been around?
Zig and Zag.
Zig and Zag. See, there were clowns in Melbourne, Zig and Zag. So I think
Moomba.
clowning
They were
was
Moomba clowns. Were they?
far
yeah.
more,
Yeah,
far more
huge.
socially
Yeah.
acceptable back then than what it is now. I think if you had,
Yeah, this guy kind of
people
ruined it for
clown-
all
Look
of
at
us.
Ronald McDonald. I mean,
Oh yes,
Yeah,
of
correct.
course.
you know,
Well, I
like it's,
try
What a
not
clown.
So
to.
sinister.
but your point is well made that it was probably much more of a thing.
Absolutely. How could I have not made the connection with Ronald McDonald? That's brilliant. It's so true, Schmitty, of that time. Clowns were king.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
You're right. Anyway, so he invents not one but two characters of his own. He devises Pogo the Clown and Patches the Clown, devising his own makeup and costumes. I don't know what to say because I think he did a shithouse job, but then I think that everybody else is pretty awful as well. It's not like on the scale of clowns that I'm judging him against. I just, it's pretty ordinary.
So if he was going to do like a clown race instead of RuPaul's Drag Race, if he was doing clown race, you reckon he would be one of those contestants who went off in the first or second because they don't know how
Totally.
to put any makeup on and they don't know how to put their fake breasts on and
Absolutely. They don't
they've
have to
still
strap
got a
everything
beard.
Correct.
round and round.
And,
yeah.
Michelle Visage is telling them off because they've got a midnight shadow.
Shadow.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, gosh.
So I was just wondering whether, in your opinion, clowns should be part of cancel culture, where we just get rid of them and just we don't ever want to hear about clowns ever again. They've brought nothing to
know.
society that is good.
I see no merit. They're just not something for me. I can't.
You'd happily cancel them.
They're an irrelevance to me. I just don't get it. I don't know people who
Yeah.
are interested in clowns. I don't know how I'd have a conversation with that person. I would be intrigued, actually. I'd like to meet somebody who really is passionately... Actually, no, let's not say that. I'd like to meet somebody who, within my own circle and, people, network of friends or whatever else, who genuinely likes clowns, because I would be interested. Not some whack job who's loved clowns their whole life, but someone who, one of our friends who can call in and say, Carla, I'd like to discuss my fondness For clowns. I've
clowns.
always
My
loved them
passion
since
for
I was a child. I really
clowns.
like clowns. I find them highly entertaining. I love their costumes. I love the, the imagery
Escapism,
around
the
it.
fantasy.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Clowns. What's not to love? I would be intrigued to have a conversation with somebody, a clownster.
And you're just going to say, fuck right off.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
clowns are people too.
Tell me, what am I missing? What have I missed?
Tell me.
Because
So, in my recollection, Zig and Zag, who were the ones in Melbourne who
Yeah.
did do Moomba, they also
Yeah.
were quite active with the Royal Children's Hospital and
Yeah.
fundraising, and I actually think they were quite a loved part of
I don't doubt it.
Melbourne society at the time. So I think
Yeah.
it's quite interesting to just see how much. Because I don't think anyone loves clowns anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think
You
that
might
they
be
were
right.
really
Maybe it's
big.
just of the time, isn't it?
All right.
And there's lots
I
of things
think
that we
so.
laugh
Yeah,
about
they're
like
a bit-
that.
Maybe
wanna
they've had their
Google-
day. Like
What is the
royals.
person
But I'm thinking
who
the
loves clowns called?
the best use for clowns are rodeos and stuff to get them
Oh yeah.
away
Again,
from
that's
Distract
true.
the bull.
Yeah.
cause a distraction.
He seldom earned money for his performances and later said that his acting as a clown allowed him to regress into childhood. And
Oh, I'm
He-
sorry. Can I just digress for a moment? Because I've been trying
What
to
have you
find
found?
some evidence that people love clowns. Because you
Yes.
two have just said they don't.
oh, they will. We know they will.
The website clownpassions.com, which is a 100%
Tell me it's not a
free.
porn website.
When you say you found it, you mean you logged back in.
I reactivated my account.
Yeah, I'd forgotten all about that.
I'll renew my subscription.
Oh God.
Too funny.
So
Sorry.
sorry,
Smiko.
it is 100% free dating and social networking for clowns and clown lovers. Clown chat.
Hang on, free dating and social networking. Like,
What?
you'd at least go free social networking and dating, not. Who wants to date and social network?
Clowns are unique entertainers in that they are simultaneously loved and hated, and in some cases even feared. Introduce a clown to any large group of people and you're likely to see a myriad of reactions. Clown Passions provides a welcoming environment for the clown community.
A safe space.
Yeah. Where colourful costumes, red noses, extremely large
This
shoes,
is great!
and tiny cars
Tiny cars.
are accepted as
Squirting water flowers.
Tiny cars.
Members
Oh, God.
can browse the clown groups to find others based on their clown skills. Juggling,
Oh.
magic, physical comedy, or puppetry, as well as many others. Everything is free, so sign up to enjoy photo personals, free clown chat, whatever that is, message boards, and email. There you go. See?
Wow.
Goodness gracious.
Someone must
We
love
need
a clown.
That was genius. Great
Yeah.
find, Schmitty.
It's like a
I think
support
it's
group for
only fair that
clowns.
people who have a thing for tiny cars, they do
Tiny
need
cars, it says.
tiny. I want the people who love tiny cars to have their community. They need their people too. I'm all
They're
for
people
this.
too, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're all people.
Everybody,
Let's give
you
them
know,
a
who am
hug.
I to judge? Good on you. Tiny cars.
Another thing that makes Clown Passions unique
Tiny car lovers.
that makes Clown Passions unique is that it has a number of features that specifically address the interests of the clown community. How about that? If you have any interests, it's clownpassions.com.
Yeah, wow. I'll be checking that out later.
Clownpassions.com. And if they say who introduced you, just say name drop.
Send them Schmitty sent me.
And,
Yeah,
the, and
she
the
gets
promo
$5
code,
for
And
every
the
new
promo
member.
promo code trial by one Clown Passions.
Member get member. I love it.
/ Schmitty. Don't tar us with that brush.
I love it. Oh. This has been a very roundabout way to get to a member get member promotion for clownspassion.com for you, Schmitty.
Yes, Schmitty. That's why her eyes lit up so much when you said you were going to talk about the clown murderer. She's like, yes.
Oh my God. She's been sitting on that little gem, just waiting to drop in a promo code.
I've been waiting for this moment. This is the reason I started this podcast.
And again, that is Trial by Wine, Clown Passions 20. For $20.
Oh, me too much. It hurts.
For a yearly subscription of just $20, you'll be entitled to...
Oh, goodness.
Oh, got that jaw ache. Ow.
Me too.
I'm glad I could provide
Bring
you
it back.
with that.
I need to bring myself back
Yeah.
together.
Okay,
I'm
so
crying.
let's
3,
go.
2, 1. You're back in the room.
Let's go back to sadness. Right.
Okay, back to the... Okay, yep.
All right.
Okay. Oh, God.
Right.
I think it speaks volumes, actually, because the next bit says that, you know how we're saying it was of the time. He performed as both Pogo and Patches, his two different, clown alter egos, at local parties, which I'd get, charitable events, I think I'd understand, children's hospitals, definitely, and political functions. And that's what I mean. It crosses all gamuts of society at that time, doesn't it? It's just like everybody wants a clown at their function. Yeah. And I just, I can understand now when we started this and we're looking at that sinister clown, why he only gets gigs for, scaring children. Business ain't what it used to be, right? And I mean, he wasn't getting paid, but there are no gigs at all. And I also thought it was quite interesting.
I feel like our political events are now just full of clowns, also known as politicians.
They don't need to be dressed up, correct.
We don't need to pay someone to do that. We've got that nailed.
Sometimes Gacy would remain in his clowning garb after a performance and briefly drink at a local bar before returning home. It's his voluntary public service as a clown throughout the years of his murders that led him to be known as the killer clown. So there's nothing really more than that. That's the whole
So
thing.
he doesn't
just
kill
that
them
they latched
dressed
onto
as a
it.
clown. He doesn't,
Correct.
He doesn't...
Yeah. So, I was sort of trying to explore that thing, but that's not the territory.
It's neither
That's
here nor
just
there.
an
It's just
overlay
something that he
for the
Core of the
media.
story,
Correct.
is it?
Yes,
and
but it's not.
If he hadn't been a clown, then what? You would have said the construction killer because he ran a construction company. Like,
Totally. It would be
it's just
something like that.
The
It's just
sodomite
a
killer.
It just didn't have the visual imagery, let's say, that a clown did. And some dodgy old. Well, he wasn't even that old, but middle.
He's in his 30s.
In a bar. Yeah, correct. So, obviously, he was using his company. So much of PDM's workforce were high school students, young men, and he'd often proposition his workers for sex, or he'd insist on sexual favours in return, for favours like lending them vehicles or giving them money or whatever. You can imagine young people to do what they want to do will go, all right, I'll give you a blowjob or do whatever else.
Give you a handy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also claimed to own guns and tried to sort of scare them a bit. Do you know how easy it would be for me to kill you? So he was doing just threatening stuff, but...
Yeah, right. It's a little bit of carrot and stick then, isn't it?
Correct. In 1973, so again, I know I'm chopping and changing a bit, but it's interesting because there was a series of things that were going on whilst he was also setting his life up, setting up his business, getting married, doing the clown work, being part of the local JC. All this stuff was happening at the same time as the more underhand stuff was starting to happen, and I wanted to paint that picture first. In 73, Gacy, a teenage employee, travelled to Florida. Nothing good happens down there.
Of course.
Although I love Florida, I have to be very careful.
It's a great mini golf course.
It's a great place to
see.
go, but there's lots of alligators. On the first night in Florida, Gacy raped the employee in their hotel room.
Jesus.
After returning to Chicago, the employee drove to Gacy's house and beat him in his yard. Gacy told his wife he'd been attacked for refusing to pay him for his poor quality painting work.
Right.
So again, there are so many instances of people saying, I mean, it's non-stop. It's not like he ever had a period of time where he wasn't out raping people, basically. That's his best case scenario.
I'm glad that we're now using the word rape.
100%.
That's good. It sounds more appropriate
than which? Sexual assault or sodomy?
Well, and sodomy, or what all these other things that are not like and it's also potentially pedophilia, or depending on how old they are, and all that sort of stuff. Like,
Oh gosh,
fuck.
he was
just
in
saying.
Sorry.
Now,
chat.
that promo code is again Trial by Wine, Clown Passions
Oh, gosh.
20.
In 1975, Gacy was appointed director of Chicago's annual Polish Constitution Day Parade, an event that he would supervise until 1978.
Polish. Oh yeah, because he
He's a
was
Pole,
Polish.
Through his work with the parade, Gacy met and was
Ah, right, he was a
photographed
Pole.
with
You
First
evil
Lady
Pole.
Rosalind Carter. The event later became an embarrassment to the United States Secret Service. There are photos
her,
of him
yes.
with the First Lady.
Oh,
gosh.
yuck.
He
PR
had-
Sodomizing her,
Correct.
or just photos with her
No,
in public?
because he went on his...
It's like
'cause
all
in the
those
pictures,
people who had a lovely time with Jimmy Savile and are
Yes.
like, oh, how embarrassing now. Yeah.
But more than that, he apparently in the
Or
and you can
Prince
see it in the
Andrew.
photograph. In the photograph, he is wearing an S
Hmm.
pin, which indicates a person given special clearance. So
Oh,
clearly they've
God,
got
even
it's
worse.
like even worse. Yeah.
So the Secret Service gave him special clearance.
No.
He's a clown. He's
How
fine.
embarrassment.
Brilliant.
You know,
yeah. He's just clowning
Clowns
around.
are lovely.
It's all in good. It's all in good humour.
Yeah.
Don't tar them all with the same brush.
So there you go. You've got a picture of a guy who is, standing with the First Lady. I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. So let's just cut to the chase. What did he do? Gacy murdered at least 33 young men
Jesus.
and boys.
I didn't know it was that many. I knew it was a lot, but 33.
He buried 26 of them in the crawl space
Yeah.
under the house in Summerdale Avenue. So I did Google this to make sure I was absolutely clear. I thought I
What
knew
a
what it
crawl
was.
space is?
It's crawl spaces. You've got your earth, and then there's a gap between where the building starts. And particularly,
The
I don't know that
stilts.
it's done here.
Or the stumps, and then
And certainly of those type of houses, it was done thing. And a crawl space is an unoccupied,
Unoccupied.
unfinished, narrow
Yeah.
space within a building between the
Yeah.
ground and the first floor. The crawl space is so named because
Yeah.
there is typically only enough room to crawl rather than stand. Anything larger than
Yeah,
about
right.
1 to 1.5 metres would be considered a basement. So that's important.
Right.
Because you can't
Yeah,
decorate,
yeah.
you can't do anything with it. It's literally the kind of thing where, do you know what? When we've been in the US at a house, there's someone had to crawl underneath to get to a pipe or something. That's all I would think of. Yeah.
Yeah. Ours would be about 500 mil tops, 400.
Yeah.
You couldn't crawl under it. You've got to commando crawl kind of thing, not.
Did he cut the floorboards up so that he could actually dig this space? Because how would you dig that space and then bring a body in and conceal it? I know it's not
Put it
6
in
foot.
there.
And
Yeah.
hide the smell.
yes-
It'd take you forever.
Yeah,
if
the
it
whole
was
thing
that-
doesn't
only that
add up to me.
much.
Oh no, apparently it smelt when they went in there.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I'll
And
get
while
to
the
that. It
wife
tells you
is
what he did.
living there too.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, let me tell you what he did. So we'll get to his victims included people he knew and random individuals he lured from the Greyhound State bus station, or simply off the streets with the promise of a job with PDM, or an offer of a drink, or drugs, or money, or sex. It was everything. He didn't. Sorry, go. Smith.
I was just going to ask a question. You know that first person who went to the police and didn't show up?
Yeah.
Was
from
he a victim?
No.
Oh. I wondered if that's why he never
Didn't
showed
turn
up,
up.
because Gacy had killed him. Okay. Sorry, go on.
I say that. I don't know. I haven't come across that, but you might be right because then I
I,
didn't.
won-
go
I
into
wondered
the
that
issue.
too.
I think you might be on it.
Yeah, that came
I
across.
think you might be because I haven't gone into the details.
Table.
You can go in, like I have
No, that's
a
okay,
list
it's
of
okay.
all the different. Well, maybe I can look into that later because there's about that many by each person that they were
terrible.
able to identify, and then the ones they have
terrible.
found out more recently because of DNA or whatever. I mean, it's such a volume of work. Could you imagine that? Anyway, good question. We'll see if I can find the answer. Some victims were grabbed by force. Others were conned into believing Gacy was the sheriff or a policeman. So he did lots of different things to lure people, and he would usually lure them alone, although sometimes he did do doubles, and he did kill 2 victims in a night. So he was good at this.
That's busy.
This is important. This is what you want to know, I guess. Inside Gacy's home, his usual modus operandi was to ply a youth with drink, drugs, or generally gain his trust. He would then produce a pair of handcuffs to show a magic trick. So here we have the little bit of a clowning bit come in, I guess. sometimes as part of a clowning routine. Because nothing would entertain me as a young male going to another man's house. Show me some of your clowning work.
It's such
What's
a
this you say with your
turn
clowning?
on.
Show me. You've got to show me.
So sorry, just going back to Clown Passions. Then.
Yes, Dane.
If we were back on the dating website of clownpassions.com, I think that would be a magic trick. So that would fall under the special category of magic, and that is the special chat room he'd be in to be telling people about his magic trick. Yes?
Do you want to drop a promo code in there?
Try buy one, Clown Passions 20.
20.
Oh, God. He typically cuffed his own hands behind his back, then surreptitiously released himself with the key, which he'd hid between his fingers. He then offered to show his intended victim how to release himself from the handcuffs. With the victim manacled and unable to free himself, Gacy then made a statement to the effect that the trick is you have to have the key. Gacy referred to this act to restrain the victim as the handcuff trick. Gacy proceeded to rape and torture his captive. He frequently began by sitting on or straddling himself over his victim's chest before forcing the victim to fillet him. Gacy then inflicted acts of torture including burning with cigars, making the captive imitate a horse as he sat on their back, and pulled upon makeshift reins around their necks, and violation with foreign objects such as dildos and prescription bottles. You know, you just sodomise his captive. To immobilise his captive's legs before engaging in acts of torture, Gacy frequently manacled their ankles to a 2x4 with handcuffs attached to each end, an act inspired by the Houston mass murders. He is also known to have verbally taunted many of his victims throughout their continued abuse, and to have dragged or forced several victims to crawl into his bathroom, where he partly drowned them, in the bathtub, before repeatedly reviving them, enabling him to continue and to endure the torture.
Oh, he's a fuck.
Gacy would make a statement to the effect he would kill his victims when he wanted to. Gacy typically murdered his victims by replacing a rope tourniquet around their neck before progressively tightening the rope with a hammer handle. I don't know what that is. A hammer handle.
Oh, that would be
What does that mean?
twisting it.
Twisting it.
Oh,
So you
right. Okay, got it.
Twist it, and it would get tighter each time you twist it.
I would never have arrived.
Schmitty, you should
Isn't
have
that a
been
garrote?
first in to
That's
say
correct, yeah.
that.
They use that.
No,
They use
garrote
that
is
word.
garrote is where you
Right, it's the tightening of
hit
the-
them almost.
Yeah.
Nearly, where you
So you'd
tighten a
have
piece
the
of wire.
rope around the neck and then around the hammer, and you would turn it slowly, and that would tighten the rope.
Tighten the rope, but a garrote
Yeah.
is like
It's almost
a piece of
beheading.
wire with
Yeah,
two
yeah.
handles and just go cut the head
correct.
straight off.
Oh my God, this is so awful. He referred to this act, so he sees it as, a series of acts, as the rope trick, frequently informing his captive,
It's not a fucking
this
trick,
is the last
clown.
trick. In at least one instance, he had read part of Psalm 23 as he tightened the rope around his victim's neck. Occasionally, the victim had convulsed for an hour or two before dying, although several victims died by asphyxiation from cloth gags stuffed deep into their throat.
Oh, Jesus.
Except for his two final victims, all were murdered between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. After death, Gacy usually stored the victims' bodies under his bed for up to 24 hours before burying his victim in the crawl space, where he periodically poured quicklime to hasten the
There you go.
decomposition
See? Told ya.
of his
Right.
victims.
There you go. Yep.
Some
So it wasn't
victims'
a lot of
bodies were
burying
taken to
them,
his
was it? It was
garage, and embalmed prior to their burial. Right.
He's an embalmer as well. He has got so many jobs.
Skills.
It's
So revolting. What a monster.
It is quite remarkable, isn't it?
He's fucked. Yeah.
Although Gacy remained gregarious and civic-minded, several neighbours had noticed erratic changes in his behaviour after the 1976 divorce. Because I think that's when people start to look, actually. Because that's not when the murders were starting. Murdered loads of people by that point. But people view you slightly differently, or, they're a bit more suspicious or
Yes.
mindful of cars coming and going.
The wife of the daughter's there. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
there's some
great
people
cover.
coming over, whatever.
And so in some ways you're going, why didn't you want to get rid of them? And in other ways you're like, they were the perfect foil. Of course you wouldn't. If you're getting away with this and they're asleep between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. where you're doing most of your work, But I mean, really, how do people not notice? I do not know.
But she
I've seen
noticed teenage boys
Correct.
going
She noticed
into...
Yeah.
She saw
like-
that, and she noticed their belongings being left behind. Like, why would you leave your wallet and your belongings? You know?
Oh, an ID and everything. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's funny what people notice in retrospect. This included seeing him keeping company with young males. I love that, keeping company. It's such a wholesome way of saying
keeping
it.
company.
Hearing his car arrive or depart in the early hours of the morning, or seeing lights in his home switch on and off in the early hours. One neighbour later recollected that for several years, the sounds of muffled, high-pitched screaming, shouting and crying had repeatedly awakened
No!
her and her son in the early morning hours.
Oh no! Come on.
Come on.
She identified
I
the
can
sounds
come-
as emanating from a
Yeah.
house adjacent to theirs on West Summerdale Avenue.
I can come
That's
at
a
the
cool
lights on, the car, leaving, all of that. There's nothing that is overly
Evidence
criminal
of
about
obvious
that.
crime. Yeah, that's right.
But a man taking teenage boys into his garage, the screaming, like, come on. What?
No, the weeping,
shit.
like ridiculous. Yeah.
So, in a way, this has led us to the point where we're talking about murders, and there's so much to this that's not about a clown that I actually found really quite riveting.
yeah.
So, perhaps that could be part one, and then we can look at, what was he actually doing? Because, there is a lot of stuff that's been found out, even in fairly recent years with the, we've talked about it before, Schmitty, with the DNA testing, where they've actually been able to find people who'd been missing. They had no idea that he was even they were victims of him.
Yeah. People go missing all the time who have no one looking for them, sadly.
I know. And a lot of people like this who are, young guys who are, drifting around, whatever else.
The whole point about the Greyhound bus is exactly that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So 36 years old, 26 people in his crawl space under the house, 3 elsewhere on the property, and 4 that he'd put into the Des Plaines River, which is, where they live as Des Plaines. But that's a lot to cover, so I won't cover it all, but I'll go and find, some of the people who, their children were missing and or whatever else, who, the people where they knew that there was something going on.
Yeah.
And
The stories.
I will get back to you and about the latter part of his life in jail, because there's so much to look at. It's really interesting. Very well done, this documentary and stuff. So
what do you want
perhaps
to do?
we can park it there in terms of the
Yeah,
trial.
exactly. So how do we cover that?
Well, there's so many people along the way that deserve to have a bloody nut punch for sure, for just not taking the time and care.
Can you start with what his sentence was, just so that we can...
What did he end up being
know what
given?
that was?
12 deaths. 12
Did he get...
death penalties.
Death sentences? Yeah, so he was murdered, wasn't he? Yeah.
No, he
Yeah.
was executed.
He was executed.
It
by
depends on
lethal
which side of the
injection.
fence you're on, but either way, he's murdered.
It was put down.
I just... A
And
lot
I'm
of
not
this stuff
saying I'm
comes
not
back
okay
to
with
how can people get away with things for so long? And then it's not like he's living alone or, and the smell, the sounds.
It wasn't.
it's
It
hard
wasn't
work.
Nizhny Novgorod where everyone knows it smells.
Yeah, we've had the
No.
smell a few times, haven't
Yeah.
we? And
I reckon the lime would mask it.
but I think
Not
Carla
entirely.
said
To an
that there
extent.
was a smell.
No, I did hear one
No,
of them.
didn't you say?
And when I'll go into this, when they start to go in, they start to take up the floor. They find stuff. I don't want to give it away, but when they go in there, they find the first 3 things they find when they go in are 3. I think it's left-legged femur bones, and they're like, you can't have
unusual.
more than one left
Three
femur.
No one
people.
has
And
3 of them.
that's when
Yeah.
it becomes what was. Are we looking for? They were looking for one person initially. Becomes
What did he
it-
murder? An ant?
A
Ants would have
millipede,
6
a millipede.
femurs, wouldn't they? An ant human. Yeah.
So who
Oh
should
no,
be,
that made me think of that horrible
trial.
film, The Human Centipede or something. Anyway, I haven't seen it. I've just heard it talked about.
It's ringing a bell for some strange
Oh,
reason.
I've
and I don't
heard
know
about
why.
it. Oh, it's awful.
not
No,
nice.
I haven't seen it either, but
Yeah,
no.
let's not
Yeah,
let's
no,
not
let's not
explore
talk
that
about
one.
it.
Anyway, sorry.
No.
Let's go back to clowns.
But listeners, if you don't know about it, don't Google
no.
it unless you are alone, not on your work computer, and are very prepared to be freaked out.
And have a strong
It's
stomach. It's
gross.
repulsive. Anyway, I
yes.
guess just
Or at least a vomit bucket.
I think I'm happy to go hard on the neighbour who heard screams for years and did nothing. Didn't call anyone, didn't question anything. And I think, she hasn't murdered anyone herself. She's been a bit remiss in doing the right thing from a...
It's so funny that you said remiss because that word was in my mind. I was like,
Yes.
remiss. Yeah. Oh, don't mind me. Oh, darling, I was having a couple of vague years there. But yes, now on reflection, perhaps, yes.
It's
I
benefit
did
of
hear
hindsight.
some screaming and howling. Yes, my son and I did used to wake up to the sound of murderous screams, yes.
Oh,
But I didn't
so
think
we
much of it
did
at the
lose
time.
to
I
sit
had a lot
out.
going on.
We did like to sit
a lot
out on
going
the
on.
porch and have a cup of tea and listen to the sounds of young men being murdered.
Oh, torturement. I mean, just
It is.
vile.
So I'm going to sentence her and her son to a daily cocktail of quite old Baileys and Campari, because I'm sure Campari will curdle Baileys.
Quite old Baileys and Campari.
Yeah, and
Ouch.
they have to just swallow that down every day as a gentle reminder that they should have said something and not swallow their voices at the time. That's my sentence for that lot.
I think that's a good sentence for them. I think they... Just trying to think who else we could sentence. I like
Penal
that one very
system,
much.
I think- I think we should...
10 years
The
and he
Iowa
gets
parole
18
board.
months. Penal. 10 years and he gets 18 months and he's a model prisoner and he's, lauded
And record
numbers
sealed.
of JCs.
Fuck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was trying to look at that. I think that might be more common than we realise, but I haven't got enough time to...
I don't care.
What's more common?
Sealing the
What's that?
record of a criminal
All right.
record. So I'm not sure, but I'll...
Yeah.
Expunging.
It wasn't expunged, it was sealed. But I'll look into that later. But yeah, no, just the whole system. If we said he was homosexual, obviously he was, or bisexual, and it was against the law, and maybe they sort of said, yeah, as to your point earlier, Paul, it's against the law, but it's not like murder. Like 10 years for that seemed to be extreme. It's not murder, blah, blah. Although, having said
You
that...
wouldn't get that for rape.
Well, I was just about to say, having said that,
Well, nowadays, anyway.
I'm still unclear as to... Because they said he was charged with sodomy. They didn't charge him with rape. That's the bit I don't get about that charge.
Or pedophilia, right? It's not...
Yeah, was the crime...
It's just
Was the crime just bumming someone?
The
'Cause
softest
that was-
sentence. In my head, it's the softest sentence. Maybe I live in a different world to 1970s Iowa.
Fuck, I
Bumming
hope so.
someone.
Well, Carla's
They're
giggling
just
at
bum
it.
chums.
Exactly.
I'm
Because
giggling.
Carla, remind me, that kid was underage.
The one who went to prison for the
one
son.
he bummed.
Yeah.
But no, he did. He raped him. I'll take that back. He raped him, didn't he?
The one he
The
bumped.
kid. The
Yeah, it
kid.
wasn't just bumming.
Yeah, John the...
Yeah,
boss.
the complaint was, it was non-consensual. Is my point, right?
He was 15 years
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
Okay, right. So it wasn't just bumming.
So
it was
it's
raping.
pedophilia and it's rape.
But I don't think. But why not
But
call
also
it?
pedophilia, right? It's not
Yes, I agree. Well, absolutely. But
both.
what I'm exactly. So why was the charge just about sodomy? Like, why were we all?
That's
Why
what
was
I'm
it all
saying.
just
That's
about where you put your dick, as opposed to the actual crime of forcing someone?
all the other shit.
Correct. So that is
I
where
don't
the
know
penal
how
system
much
was
you've
wrong.
listened to Little Britain, but they have a little joke about cock and bum fun, and I think cock
does?
and bum
Who
fun
does?
can
Little
be a
Britain.
thing. Little Britain.
Little Britain. Oh,
Little Britain. It's yeah, cock and bum fun,
God bless
and that's
them.
a thing amongst consenting adults,
Yes,
right?
that's
I'm
right.
okay with that, but cock and bum fun with a man and a child,
it sounds like
and
a
a
bakery.
man and a non-consenting child.
That's right.
Is
It's
just
rape.
fucked. Don't sit there in court and say, "Oh, it was just a bit of cock and bum fun. You get 10 years." Call it what it is, and maybe you would have put him in jail for a whole lot longer, and he wouldn't have got out in 18 months, and he wouldn't have done the shit that he did.
It would be interesting to understand what the
fuck sodomy.
Yeah, it would be interesting to understand the average sentence of the same period for raping a young woman, or like an underage woman at the time. Why is it about sodomy?
If you cock and bum fund underage woman, would you get done for sodomy or would you get done for rape and pedophilia?
Exactly.
God. Are we really talking about cock and bum fun? That's just ridiculous. Anyway, yes, I agree with sentencing
That's
and ages.
because you're trying to lighten the mood on it, and it's horrific. What he went on to do,
desperately trying to, right?
Yeah.
Desperately trying to.
Yeah, I get it.
Yes.
I actually think the second part would be way more horrendous than this bit. I mean, really, this bit has been awful, but up until the end, more like, what? He did what? You know, it's sort of like, he wasn't out there.
Yeah.
He was, but
we didn't know at the time.
No, it's more like the setup.
Yeah.
You know, he's out there being...
Do you know that I know...
the model citizen.
I know the name. I never knew he was a clown. So, and I knew of his crimes, but not the fact that he was a clown. So that's interesting that was the link that got you into it.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this out there now.
Yes, darling.
From here on out, episode 21, pay attention to how often we, in the future, describe one of the people we're talking about as being seen as a model citizen. It's amazing how many model citizens turn out to be nut job murderers.
Yeah.
Well, there's a real thing, and I don't know if you listen to Australian True Crime ever, but there's an amazing woman on that called Narelle Fraser, who was a detective in Melbourne, and she ended up with PTSD. But she talks about the fact that these people look like everybody else, so you don't see the...
No, you wouldn't have seen him as average Joe, they called him.
It's exactly the point of this
If
guy.
a pedophile looked like a pedophile, you wouldn't let them amongst your kids.
Correct.
They don't look like that, and so that's how they get away with it. So yeah.
No, absolutely.
Fraser's great.
Anyway.
And thank you to Michelle Laurie for doing that podcast too, because it's very good. Anyway, yes. What else? Other crimes? And Emily Webb, yes. No. Other crimes as well?
I think for this, I think that's fine. I think the neighbours, which sort of, they are sort of like, they symbolise all of the people who turned a blind eye the whole way. We'll use that as for everybody who went, oh, I'm not sure about that, but I don't want to know, or that's something to do with homosexuality. I don't want to even address that. That's something to do with him having sex with underage boys. Yeah. I don't want to look. I don't want to know. There's so much of that which is don't look, don't know, don't. You know, I can't deal with that. So I just turn away. As opposed
it's
to
all disgusting. Therefore, we can't talk about any of it.
Correct. Yet those very same people, I'm sure, given a situation where they thought like a little girl was being abducted or something, would be this is all going wrong. But these people's lives they couldn't deal with. I think that the young people being raped as a concept was beyond them.
I was just going to say, with your neighbours, I'm not sure whether we should say, do we cut their tongues out so they can't ever speak again, given that they've made a decision not to? Or do we give them giant fucking megaphones to say, for God's sake,
use it?
You know, if you're hearing this stuff,
do something
tell
about
us.
it. Yeah, but it wasn't a.
Even turn the stereo up in your own house to cause a distraction.
In the 70s, we didn't have the if you see it, call it out. I mean, we are currently going through societal educational programs.
I don't agree with that.
We are currently going through societal education programs around, violence against women and domestic abuse in the home. So, and you see all this if you see it, call it out stuff. You know, mandatory reporting of suspected child abuse has only been around for 10, 15 years. So I was the first one to say that neighbours are wrong. So I still think they're wrong. If you hear that for years, come on. Is there a chance though that they didn't realise?
So don't defend them.
I'm not defending them, but I'm all about frickin' cultural context, right? Anyway, so I go megaphone versus cutting their tongue out just for that. I'll go and Campari and Bailey's mixed together curdled drink.
And Bailey's.
Yep.
Carla, can you read out what they said again?
For several years, the sounds of muffled, high-pitched screaming, shouting,
fuck
and
off.
crying, I mean, literally it's everything covered, had repeatedly awakened her and her son in the early morning hours. She identified the
For
sounds as
several
emanating from the house.
years.
And if you're looking,
I mean,
looking at
once.
his wife and the daughters, and there is no sign that they're being abused, surely.
But why didn't she hear anything? Come on.
Oh, true.
That's again. I need to.
So
I will
she's-
find
they're
more
in the
about
house.
that in the second part, because
She's
I
on
don't
my
know if that
list.
lady's still
Very
alive
heavy
or not.
sleeper, like me.
But I mean,
The Hoff.
The
Are we talking
Hoff,
about the
yeah.
Hoff? The Hoff's
Took
on
a
my
couple of
list.
Valiums
Yeah,
and went
she's
to
on my
bed
list.
every night.
this is a single story
Couple of
home.
Mogadon.
I mean, if they have a voice and they choose not to use it, just take it away. Fuck. I'm not okay with them. I think if you hear that for several years, and I understand,
I agree.
often the best thing you can do is try to delve into it more. And maybe, Carla, we should try to do that at some point
Yeah.
if you're going to do a follow-up on this. But
Yes.
my initial thoughts, and I no doubt will make an idiot of myself and I'll have to retract it later, but I just think if for several years you hear those noises, at what point do you go and say, hey, honey, are you okay? I've heard these noises come. Like, surely...
Or be
You can't
pissed
just
off
sit
and
back
go over
and
and say,
go-
we can't sleep. What's going
Turn
on
the-
over here?
yeah,
If you
shut
think
the
it's
fuck
totally
up.
innocent and
Stop.
you're not thinking they're murdering somebody, but they're making a hell of a cacophony, you get over there and you'd say, enough.
Yeah.
We can't sleep. What are you
Shut
up
the
to
fuck
over
And
there?
even if you know what's going on, stop fucking murdering your teenage boys while I'm trying to sleep. Can you do it between the hours of 7 and
Yeah.
7 so that I'm at work and I'm cooking dinner and stuff so I can get a good
I've got
night's
stuff
sleep?
going on. Yeah, I agree.
And another desperate grab it.
Yeah,
humour
I get it.
in a
I know.
real
I
sad
know. Now, I just will
story.
say, I think most of his murdering took place in the garage, because that was his office, wasn't it? That's where he's. Yeah.
Yeah,
That it,
yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
yeah.
between 3
Well, it
and
wasn't
6.
his office. The office was actually the I read somewhere
No,
it
the
was their
office
dining
was the
room
kitchen
table within the
table.
house. Yeah.
No, that was when he was
Yeah,
living
yeah.
with his
Yeah,
mum.
But no, the murders were in the garage.
Yeah.
but she
Same
stayed in the
house.
same house. She left. She
Look,
stayed
the
in the same
murders
house.
are in the garage, and
No.
looking at a plan of the original home, because the new
Correct.
home is not the what was there. They knocked it down. The garage was separate to the property. Oh, sorry, separate to the house. So the murders weren't happening. So it's possible.
Yeah.
There was a barbecue pit in between. So if you imagine this is I don't know, say 15 metres or something away, and I don't know where her bedroom was. So if she's at the other end of the house, the furthest point away from the garage, that could be why she didn't hear it, but I'm grasping at straws on it, that's all.
I would like to know what she says about that because, yes, I
Yes.
think that there's a realm of possibility. I just think it's very, very little.
Let's get her number.
And
Yes, I need to go and listen to
Alright.
just,
some more evidence.
well, you don't need to, but if we do decide to do a
No,
follow-up,
but I'd
I
like
think
to
there'd be a
because
whole lot of
these are the
interesting
things
stuff.
that you want to know. How did you miss that?
Maybe
And I think
bonus
that,
content.
Oh, actually, maybe we could do it. I don't know. I'll go and see what I find. Because there's a lot. I think there's a lot. There's certainly, because remember, we haven't touched on anybody. I haven't told you about one person who's been murdered.
So
He did.
I want to lighten this a little. So my
Yes,
crime,
darling.
my next crime is, because I'm going to share this picture with you, is for John Wayne Gacy himself. Because honestly, do a better job with that fucking makeup.
Is it his clown makeup?
Oh, it's.
Oh,
It is.
I told you it was terrible.
Wait for it to come up.
Oh,
Yeah, isn't it hideous?
He needs to go to the Ponce Institute. I saw a different photo.
oh
I think.
isn't
Mine's
that
different.
shocking? Look at that.
What
What's
is
he
it
trying to
saying?
be? Batman?
I love how he's
Oh, no, I've
accentuated
got-
his double chin.
Oh, I've got-
his chin
Is
bum.
that?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got a cleft in his chin.
Excellent
Yes.
chin bum.
It is, yes.
Is that patches or is that? Because I've got
no
a picture of his
idea.
makeup slightly different, similar colours, but I've got Gacy as Pogo, which is slightly
I
different.
don't know who this is.
So I don't know if
All
that's
I know
patches
is
and
Excuse me,
Pogos.
honey, could you sodomise my chin?
all I know is it's shocking. So he's a crime against clown makeup, and those people
it is
on
bad.
clownpassions.com, trial by wine, clownpassions20 is the promo code. Will be very disappointed about how he's done his makeup. So definitely a crime there. Crime against clown makeup.
Yep.
Absolutely.
What's the sentence?
Trying to get that makeup.
I tell you what, I remember this story that Woo's sister told me about. Oh, it wasn't a story, it happened. I was there when we were in Perth, and the kids were outside, and I think one of them got sunburnt. So when they came in, she put Ella Bache floral oil on him to try and calm it down, and then didn't realise he was going to go back out in 40-degree heat in the sun, and he just cooked himself. So maybe it was an accident. It was
Mother
an
of the Year
accident.
award there.
Everyone out there, that was an accident. She was
Yeah.
absolutely
Crackle.
mortified. Anyway, maybe that's the answer. So to your point, Carl, about the Pons Institute, firstly we get the cold cream and we clean that hot mess
Yes.
off his face.
That would be
Then we
a
put a
mess,
nice bit of Ella Bache, I don't even know if they make it anymore, any form of oil, and we
Yes.
pop him out in the Australian sun, maybe somewhere in the middle of our desert for a couple of days so that he can really
Yeah.
feel the heat of the sun.
Oh,
There we
cook
go.
it up.
That's my sentence.
A nice 48-degree day
Yeah.
to blister
Beautiful.
that skin.
Oh,
Let
yeah.
me go on
Like
I
a
blister in the sun.
That's it.
Let me go on.
Pogo, you know you're the
Oh,
boss.
God. Anyone got anything else
On that note.
Or should we just appropriately say that was a great story? I commend you covering that, Carla, because it's a bit like the piece I did around the DNA and the East Area rapist, because that is a massive story also. So I understand the difficulty of trying to address so much in these things, and I do appreciate what you're saying, because I knew he was Pogo Clown. I knew he killed lots of people. I knew he was he killed boys, and he was probably homosexual. I knew all those things.
Yep.
But I didn't realise the level of kind of that whole kind of CEO psychopathic stuff that he did outside of that.
What an achiever he was.
Yeah.
It's not the story that I thought I was going to find or that I went looking for. And I find that quite often, like, I have in my mind, I think, oh, that could be interesting territory or whatever else, and I try and find a story around it. And I thought it was really going to be, I was trying to get the cheap laugh about the clown and whatever else, but that's, when I got to it, it was like, well, I don't really see that that's the story here. That's just someone overlaid that as this is a nice little headline. Basically the clown stuff was for shits and giggles, but there's so much stuff in that lead up to, before he's even arrested, where the character, it's really there in this one. There's so much information. There's so much being documented. The fact that he's with the First Lady, the fact that he's being interviewed in a
I think he talks
prison,
a lot, doesn't he?
that they then forget about. But
But I
he's
think
out
Gacy
there.
was one of those serial killers who talked a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah. So there'll be a lot of that. So I think that if I can come back and revisit and get us to the lethal injection from to the here to there, and with some well, not some colour, but some some detail of what he did and who he did it to. There's no big surprises in that it's been done and where they're all found, but there's a lot more to explore, including the bloody neighbours and the ex-wife, and where were they all asleep? Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
That's all that Valium.
And and this other thing of the
righto.
parole board. As somebody, I did hear someone say, basically he was caught 10 years after. That would have been 10 years that he would have been in jail if he was. No one ever serves the whole sentence necessarily. But they were like, we would have not been dealing with these people.
He would not have had the
been-
opportunity to kill all
any of
these men
this.
if he'd stayed in
Okay,
jail.
yes,
That's right.
correct. Yeah.
Had he done his 10 years, yeah. There's one learning that I think comes out of this for me, and that's about diversity. So, like, when he's sitting there in his JC meetings and they're going, let's watch some porn.
More porn,
I
more
feel like he had a
porn,
very
more
diverse
stag films,
audience.
more stag films.
More stag films. That's what these meetings
More
are really
stag
lacking.
films, yeah.
If you had some good diversity there, you wouldn't get that. And I think, there's a real... we talk about diversity a lot, but I think that's a really good example of where it would have benefited the whole thing, because that wouldn't have been normalised.
Oh, totally. This is
Someone
a tale
would have stood
of
up and called that
a white male, who was projecting a life as a straight white male, married, 2 children, businessman, whatever else. So it was like that's so generic. No one notices when all the shit's going down. You're quite right.
It just seems like everything he did was accepted by those around him, because they all kind of just went, oh, we'll just turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
Maybe they just need to have a blind eye.
Oh, there you go.
we can turn it
Oh,
off.
hello. There you go. I'll give you a blind eye.
There you go.
One that turns. One that turns. Turn the
That's right, yes. Yes.
What have you done to yourself
like the
there, love?
clowns we could have a trial by wine. You know those clowns that turn their head and you got to put the balls in their mouth. It's just a blind eye that turns.
Imagine that. Imagine turning yourself. It's like, oh, sweetheart, what have you done to yourself there? I turned a blind eye. It's like, oh, you really did. Whoops.
Oh,
What are you doing that to yourself?
Which one's looking at me?
Yeah.
I don't know which eye to make contact
All
with.
right. No, all good. All right.
Okay.
Enough of that, you silly rapscallions. Excellent work, Carla. That was really, really good. And again, Paul, thanks for the japes along the way. And that promo code again, Trial by Wine, Clown Potions 20.
Clown passion.
All right.
Well
Okay,
done.
guys.
Well done.
Can't wait till next week.
Until next time.
All right.
Excellent.
See you later.
Thank you, lovely
Arrivederci.
people. Bye.
Bye.
Ta-ta.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.